Greetings, fellow cultivators. Have you forsaken sleep and mortal concerns to ascend the heavenly stairway of webcomics? Then you have found your sect. Welcome to Manhwa Novel Recap, where we mainline pure, uncut plot directly into our spiritual core. Our first cinematic sermon is on the divine scripture of Mist, Might and Mayhem. Smash the like button with the force of a falling meter. Subscribe to help us form our golden core. Ring the bells so the heavenly Tao of the algorithm smiles upon us. 5 young men stood before a heavy wooden door, their expressions etched with a profound unease that seemed to pull at the corners of their mouths. Their gazes, fixed intently on the unyielding surface, betrayed a shared tension, each swallowing dryly as if to quell a rising wave of doubt. Only moments before, the chilling proposition from Mok Gyeong-un had fallen like a stone into their midst, unsettling their very perception of the trial. The idea of deliberately incapacitating their fellow cadets, of breaking their limbs before the true tests even began, felt utterly outrageous. It was a barbaric thought. Yet, as the silence stretched, a cold, undeniable logic began to seep into their minds. The longer this grueling selection process continued, the more fiercely competitive it would become. Survival would hinge on ruthlessness. But what if the field of competitors was drastically reduced, eliminated even, before the true contest commenced? A quiet realization dawned on them. Their chances would undoubtedly improve. Only a select few, after all, would ultimately earn the favor of the officers. In such a high-stakes environment, being particular about methods or means felt increasingly naive. One of the boys, his voice barely a whisper, finally broke the silence. "Will it truly work?" "It should," another responded, his voice thin but firm. There were 5 of them, formidable in their own right, and only 2 confined within the room beyond the door. With such a clear advantage in numbers, a surprise attack would surely render the task of subduing them a simple one. Mok Gyeong-un's instructions had been stark and unequivocal. "You 5 will move together." A nervous query had followed, asking if perhaps they could manage alone. He had simply repeated the command, "The 5 of you go together." One brave soul had suggested sending 1 or 2 to support Mok Gyeong-un and his other companions, Yom-ga and Mo-ha Rang. Mok Gyeong-un had merely scoffed. "Why bother with such complications? We are more than capable on our own." He spoke the truth. Those who had achieved the peak realm could effortlessly contend with top-tier opponents, even alone. Their worrying felt like a puppy fretting over a tiger. The boys exchanged one last glance. This was it. Let's do this. With a collective breath, they pushed the heavy door inward. As the door groaned open, the hushed discussion within the room abruptly ceased. The 2 boys, who had been engrossed in their own plans for team formation, turned as one. "Who is it?" one asked, his voice sharp with surprise. A handsome face appeared in the doorway, framed by the open passage. Recognition dawned, and the other boy's expression hardened. "You! It was Mok Gyeong-un." From the very first gateway trial, the brutal scramble for the iron balls, he had carved an indelible impression into the minds of many cadets. One of the boys, still caught off guard, asked, a hint of confusion in his tone, "Are you going around gathering teammates by any chance?" Mok Gyeong-un offered a faint, almost lazy smile. "You could say that." With those words, he quietly swung the door shut, plunging the room into a sudden tense intimacy. The boy who had scowled now spoke, his voice tight. "Look, I have no intention of being on the same team as you." "Is that so?" Mok Gyeong-un's voice remained even, devoid of any discernible emotion. "So get out." That's a problem." "What problem?" "Go find people who want to team up with you." "I don't want to." Before the words could fully leave his lips, Mok Gyeong-un moved. He was a blur of motion, swift as a striking viper. One moment, he stood across the room. The next, he had seized the boy's head, slamming it with sickening force against the sturdy bedframe. A choked gasp, a dull thud. The boy crumpled, but before he could even register the pain, Mok Gyeong-un had seized his right arm. A sharp, wet crack echoed through the room as he twisted it violently backward. An agonizing scream tore from the boy's throat, but it was abruptly cut short. Mok Gyeong-un's hand clamped over his mouth, muffling the cries of agony, transforming them into ragged, desperate whimpers. The other boy in the room watched, frozen in bewildered horror. He had dropped his guard completely, never anticipating such a sudden, unprovoked assault. What are you doing?" he stammered, his eyes wide with fear. Mok Gyeong-un merely smiled, a faint, predatory curve of his lips. "What indeed?" Without a word, he pressed his foot down on the writhing boy's left leg. A sickening crunch, followed by a sharp snap. The ankle twisted at an impossible angle, the broken bone piercing through flesh, protruding grotesquely. A silent, bloodshot scream tore through the room as the boy's eyes widened, bulging with unbearable pain. His struggles grew frantic, then slowly subsided, his body going limp as he succumbed to unconsciousness. The remaining boy, witnessing Mok Gyeong-un's cold detachment, his casual cruelty, felt a raw terror surge through him. I'll join your team," he stammered, his voice trembling. "I will, s'il vous plaît. It's fine." Mok Gyeong-un cut him off, his voice flat. "What?" "I've already gathered my teammates. I'm just here to break some limbs." The words hung in the air, chilling him to the core. His goal from the very beginning was to injure them? The absurdity of it warred with the terrifying reality of the scene before him. If he didn't flee now, he would surely end up like his unconscious companion. He lunged, a desperate, clumsy blur aiming for the door. But it was no use. An invisible force snatched him mid-air, yanking him back with impossible speed. A sharp gasp escaped his lips as Mok Gyeong-un's hand clamped around the back of his neck. What the... I'll make it painless. What? Before he could utter another word, a rapid series of precise taps landed on his acupoints. His muscles instantly relaxed, and he sagged into unconsciousness. Mok Gyeong-un gently laid the unconscious boy on the floor. Then, with the same unsettling casualness, he stepped on his right ankle. Another sharp crack. Since the boy's acupoints were sealed, he remained oblivious to the shattering pain. Mok Gyeong-un surveyed the two broken bodies, his lips twitching into a grim satisfaction. 4, he murmured. That was the tally of limbs he had broken thus far. A voice, ethereal and ancient, echoed in his mind. "Are you seriously planning to break them one by one?" Mok Gyeong-un replied without a flicker of hesitation. "Of course." He considered the alternative, wasting precious time dragging out the trial. Eliminating most competitors now would render the subsequent stages practically unnecessary. "Seriously, you fiend." The ancient voice Chong Ryong clicked his tongue in clear disapproval. Such a brutal strategy was difficult to conceive for most, and even if they did, they would likely target only a few troublesome individuals. Mok Gyeong-un's ambition, however, operated on a terrifyingly different scale. He intended to use the given time for rest and team selection to systematically eliminate every other cadet. In a grim sense, misfortune had befallen this entire cohort of Corpse Blood Valley cadets from the moment Mok Gyeong-un joined them. Now there are 64 left, he mused aloud. Out of an initial 80, 4 had been captured. 4 now lay broken by his hand, and 8, including himself, were already aligned as teammates. 64 remained, untouched for now. Meanwhile, Mok Gyeong-un sat in quiet contemplation, deeply immersed in the intricate flow of his internal energy cultivation technique. The hours had passed unnoticed, marked only by the rhythmic circulation within his core. When he finally opened his eyes, a strange, almost uncanny aura flickered within their depths, a stark contrast to his usual aura of quiet righteousness. It vanished as quickly as it appeared. What was that just now, he wondered. During his practice, he had been enveloped by a peculiar sensation, one he had never encountered before. Normally, the technique brought a profound sense of clarity, a tranquil purification of both body and mind. This time, however, he had been seized by an unprecedented pleasure, a subtle, intoxicating current that coursed through his very being. The instant he had surrendered to that pleasure, something astonishing had occurred. His energy had surged suddenly, unequivocally. Driven by a mix of curiosity and apprehension, Mok Gyeong-un directed his internal awareness to his danjon, his core energy center. His eyes widened in shock. He practiced energy circulation regularly, intimately familiar with the precise size of his danjon and the precise level of his internal energy. Yet it had grown. slightly, almost imperceptibly but undeniably larger than before. How can this be? A tremor of disbelief ran through him. Could the Yon Mok mind transformation method, no matter how exceptional, truly increase internal energy so rapidly? At this astonishing rate, if he continued practicing diligently, he could cut his usual cultivation time by more than half. Just as he was about to bask in the pleasant, heady sensation of such rapid progress, a quiet unease began to creep in. This peculiar pleasure, this deviation from the familiar path of cultivation, left him strangely unsettled. Is this truly all right? Doubts surfaced, questioning whether this unusual experience, this departure from the basic tenets of energy circulation, might lead him astray. He shook his head, pushing the worrisome thoughts aside. This was no ordinary method, he reminded himself. This was the Yon Mok mind transformation method, an exclusive cultivation technique passed down only to the Yon Mok Manor's heir. Naturally, it would differ significantly from common techniques. Right. That can't be it. He had worried that improper energy circulation might lead him down a dangerous path, a descent into mental demons. But his mind remained upright, his thoughts clear and composed. As long as he didn't waver from his righteous path, there should be no problem. He was about to resume his cultivation when a soft rap sounded at the door. "Knock! Knock!" "Who is it?" he called out, puzzled. There was no one he expected to seek him out at this moment. The door opened slowly, and a figure stepped inside. Oh? It was a boy with a mature demeanor, almost appearing like a young man. His handsome face was marred only by a pair of sharp, narrow eyes. This guy. He recognized that face. During the second trial, when he had lost his companions and was fleeing alone, he had found himself in a predicament. It was this young man, leading a small group, who had intervened and helped him escape. His name was definitely Mok Gyeong-un. Mok Gyeong-un's lips curved into a slight smile. "Hey, you remember me well. How could I forget the one who saved my life?" Mok Gyeong-un rose swiftly from his seat, offering a cupped fist salute, a gesture of profound respect. Mok Gyeong-un waved a dismissive hand. "No need for that. It's unfitting for peers of the same age to exchange such formalities. Just greet me like a friend. Still, if not for you, He might have truly perished back then. That was why his gratitude felt so genuine. Mok Gyeong-un's eyes, however, seemed to hold a different kind of interest as he regarded Mok Gyeong-un. Your complexion doesn't look too good." "My complexion?" Puzzled, Mok Gyeong-un instinctively reached for his face, but the bare room offered no mirror, only two simple beds. "Is it that bad?" "It has a bit of a brownish tint." "Brown?" Mok Gyeong-un furrowed his brows. He had continued practicing the Yon Mok mind transformation method without interruption, and it seemed that the side effects had resurfaced, though he had thought he had overcome them. While it concerned him, there was nothing he could do about it now. He shook his head. "It's fine. I might just be very tired." "That's a relief, then." Mok Gyeong-un nodded, though his gaze lingered for a moment. "Anyway, what brings you here?" In response, Mok Gyeong-un closed the door, his expression turning serious. "A small problem has arisen." "Problem? I was supposed to meet up with a friend who agreed to be on the same team, to practice energy circulation and convene in the evening. However, he never showed up. So I went to his room and found him unconscious with a broken leg." "What?" Mok Gyeong-un's brow furrowed in disbelief. What on earth was he talking about? Mok Gyeong-un continued, his tone meaningful. "Suspecting something, I checked a few more rooms and found others with broken legs as well." "Don't tell me. It seems someone has been causing trouble. But why would they do that? It's rather absurd, but they're probably trying to reduce the number of competitors in advance as much as possible." "By breaking everyone's legs?" Mok Gyeong-un's voice rose, incredulous. "Precisely. There's a prohibition on killing, but no explicit rules against injuring each other." "Ha!" Mok Gyeong-un clicked his tongue, a bitter taste in his mouth. There truly was no concept of fair play in this place. Everyone seemed eager to stab others in the back at any given moment. Crazy, indeed. Definitely the work of a madman. That's why I came to propose something to you. A proposal? Have you found a team yet, or are you planning to be a team leader? Mok Gyeong-un shook his head. He had no ambitions to lead, and had been content to join any team, dedicating his time to cultivation. At this, Mu Jong-yak smiled faintly. "If you haven't joined a team yet, would you like to join mine?" "What?" "Unfortunately, it seems the friend who was supposed to be on your team was taken as a captive." Mok Gyeong-un fell silent, a clear acknowledgement in his quietude. Mu Jong-yak must have witnessed that chaotic moment. Mu Jong-yak quickly waved a hand. "Ah, I'm not suspecting you. If I did, I wouldn't have made this offer in the first place. Besides, I had already proposed it back then." "Right, you did." After saving him from his predicament, Mu Jong-yak had offered him a spot on his team, mentioning a vacancy. At that time, Mok Gyeong-un had declined, needing to remain with his scattered comrades. But this time, the situation was drastically different. Honestly, it would be better to join a team. I've already asked my teammates to gather in one room for safety." "Ah, that way we can watch out for each other's well-being. What do you think?" Faced with Mu Jong-yak's entirely reasonable suggestion, Mok Gyeong-un found no reason to refuse. Even though he had reached the peak realm, he had noticed a few cadets whose cultivation levels seemed to rival his own. He couldn't afford to let his guard down. Perhaps it would be wise to stick together with others, just as Mu Jong-yak suggested. "All right, if you'll have me, I'll do my best." At Mok Gyeong-un's words, Mu Jong-yak extended his left hand. "I'm the one who should be grateful. To have such an outstanding friend like you join us." Their hands clasped. But the moment their palms touched, Mok Gyeong-un felt a jolt of surprise. This guy, he hadn't realized it before, but the surge of internal energy he sensed from Mu Jong-yak's hand was not inferior to his own. In fact, it might even surpass it. Perhaps Mu Jong-yak had also intended to gauge his level in that brief moment, subtly revealing his own strength and allowing Mok Gyeong-un to perceive it. "As expected, you're strong." "So are you," Mu Jong-yak replied, a hint of amusement in his tone. Mok Gyeong-un nodded in agreement, acknowledging the mutual assessment. Then a curious thought struck him. "By the way, are you left-handed?" The hand Mu Jong-yak had extended was indeed his left, not his right. Mu Jong-yak chuckled, a low, secretive sound. "Who knows?" And so the night passed. Early the next morning, as the sun began its slow ascent, signaling the start of the Chen hour, a new phase of the selection process was set to begin. The time allocated for cadets to choose their team leaders and members had officially concluded. Now, it was the moment to gather in the expansive plaza situated behind the dormitory building. A frantic, urgent knocking echoed against the sturdy door of the Corpse Blood Valley leader's office. "Bang, bang, leader." "Leader." The senior warrior, who had been assisting the Corpse Blood Valley leader, looked up, a knowing look in his eyes. "It seems they're ready," he remarked. "So it appears." "Come in," the valley leader's deep voice rumbled from behind his mask. Moments later, a young warrior, his red belt a vivid slash against his dark uniform, burst into the office, his chest heaving. The senior warrior, sensing an uncharacteristic tension in the young man's demeanor, asked, "What's the matter?" "Well, there's a small issue now. A big problem has arisen." The warrior's voice was strained, his eyes wide with an unspoken dread. "A problem? I think you should head to the plaza right away. What could possibly have occurred to warrant such a reaction?" Puzzled, Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Ji-yom nodded slowly, rising from his seat. In any case, he needed to verify the designated team leaders and oversee the crucial third trial, the sword evaluation. Lee Ji-yom, accompanied by the senior warrior, followed the young warrior out of the office. Their path naturally led them towards the plaza behind the dormitory building. As they emerged into the open space, a sudden collective gasp escaped both Lee Ji-yom and the senior warrior. They halted simultaneously, utterly bewildered by the sight before them. Only 16 individuals stood present in a vast plaza. Just 2 teams. The senior warrior's brow furrowed, a deep crease of confusion forming between his eyes. He turned to the young warrior. "Why are only these kids here?" "Well, that's—" the warrior stammered, glancing nervously towards the dormitory building. "Speak quickly," the senior warrior urged, his patience wearing thin. "Well, that's— Speak quickly." Pressured, the young warrior finally managed to articulate the disturbing truth, his voice tight with discomfort. "The rest are all unable to participate in this trial due to broken legs." "What?" The senior warrior stared, doubting his own ears. All the absent individuals had their legs broken? What nonsense are you spouting? I checked a few rooms, and those who truly couldn't come out all had broken legs. How on earth? The senior warrior trailed off, disbelief painting his features. Through the narrow slits of his mask, Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Ji-yom's gaze settled upon a figure standing calmly amidst the small assembly, his hands clasped behind his back. It was Mok Gyeong-un. Lee Ji-yom's mind instantly replayed the words Mok Gyeong-un had spoken to him just yesterday. Would it be all right if I reduced the number of people a little? At the time, Lee Ji-yom had assumed it was merely about eliminating a few troublesome cadets, perhaps those who needed to be kept in check for the trials. He had simply replied, "As long as you adhere to the constraints, there won't be significant issues." Mok Gyeong-un had responded with a faint, almost amused tone. "Oh ho, that's quite fortunate." But to think Mok Gyeong-un would go this far, the Valley leader's silent assessment was grim. Isn't this a little excessive? The morning sun cast long, stark shadows across the vast training square, illuminating the grim reality of the recent trials. A senior warrior, his face contorted in a mask of barely suppressed fury, strode through the gathered trainees. He scanned the paltry few formations, each one a stark testament to the night's chaotic events. "Just who the hell pulled this stunt?" he bellowed, his voice raw with indignation. A red-belted warrior standing nearby flinched, then subtly shifted his gaze. His eyes flickered towards a figure standing with quiet confidence amidst one of the few assembled teams. The senior warrior followed the silent cue. His gaze landed on the individual, and a profound disbelief washed over his features. His mouth opened, then closed, words failing him. "Is it that bastard again?" he muttered, the anger replaced by a weary resignation. It was indeed him, the audacious youth who had consistently defied expectations. Mok Gyeong-un. The name echoed through the training ground, a silent testament to his disruptive impact. He had secured the top position in the initial stages, etching his presence indelibly into the minds of everyone present. Even those who wished to forget him found it impossible. A knot of frustration tightened in the senior warrior's gut. "There's no way he could have done it alone," he mused, a cold logic cutting through his rage. "Not with so many trainees. Did that bastard and his teammates conspire together?" "It appears so," the red-belted warrior confirmed quietly. A bitter laugh escaped the senior warrior's lips. It was truly absurd. The process of finding team leaders and members, orchestrated just the night before, was supposed to be a voluntary exercise. It was designed to highlight natural leadership qualities among the trainees. They had anticipated fierce competition. The 4 vacant spots left by dropouts surely fueled that intensity. The single restriction, no killing, was meant to allow a certain degree of ruthless struggle. Yet, this was an outcome entirely unforeseen. A deep sigh escaped him. They had expected at least 5, perhaps more, unit leader-level trainees to emerge. Only 2 had been chosen. The first 2 stages had already screened for qualifications and mental fortitude. The goal was to advance as many capable individuals as possible. Mok Gyeong-un had twisted everything beyond recognition. He approached the Valley Master, Lee Ji-yom, his voice cautious, almost pleading. "Valley Master, this won't do." Lee Ji-yom, a man whose presence commanded respect, merely arched a brow. "What do you mean?" "It has gone too far," the senior warrior insisted, a tremor in his voice. "Too far?" the Valley Master repeated, his tone devoid of overt concern. "Isn't that right?" The senior warrior, Gwamun-gi, pressed on, his voice gaining urgency. "Out of 80, no, 76, only 16 have formed teams. If we leave them be, more." He trailed off, searching for the right words. "More what? What's the problem?" Lee Ji-yom's calm demeanor was unnerving. Gwamun-gi was baffled by his leader's apparent indifference. Failure to properly filter out suitable candidates by the end of this stage would surely draw the ire of those higher up. The main castle would undoubtedly take issue with it. Gwamun-gi's worries were genuine. "It may be excessive," Lee Ji-yom finally conceded, his voice soft, "but no rules have been broken. On what grounds can we stop it?" Gwamun-gi frowned. Only yesterday the Valley Master had emphasized the need to keep a closer eye on Mok Gyeong-un. Now, he was being unexpectedly lenient. It made no sense. Valley Master Gwakmungi began again, his voice filled with concern. That fellow is not from our sect. He is a hostage brought from the righteous faction's Yeonmok Sword Manor. If the process of selecting the best is ruined because of him, the sect master and the executives will surely take issue. He paused, a new thought forming. Perhaps the society leader had anticipated this. Lee Ji-yom let out a faint sigh. Gwakmungi was like his left arm, a trusted confidant. He knew, better than anyone, how the sect master and the main castle always scrutinized the Blood Valley's events. That was precisely why Gwakmungi offered this opinion. That may be the case, Lee Ji-yom mused, his gaze distant. But it doesn't matter. In any case, it was the sect master who sent that fellow. It will be difficult for them to hold me responsible for something caused by his whim. But Gwakmungi started to protest again. We will proceed as planned. Lee Ji-yom's voice was firm, resolute. The finality of his tone left no room for further argument. Gwakmungi bowed his head, accepting the command. His lowered gaze, however, lingered on Mok Gyeong-un, a silent promise of future scrutiny. A mischievous voice, light as a feather yet sharp as a blade, echoed in Mok Gyeong-un's ears. How does it feel to be backstabbed for the first time? Chung Ryong's words were a playful jab, a reference to the tumultuous night. Mok Gyeong-un turned his head, his eyes settling on the 8 figures standing in formation nearby. Among them, 2 stood out, a boy with mature, sharp, narrow eyes, and Mok Yuchon. An odd sense of fascination stirred within him. Interesting, he thought, a faint smile playing on his lips. His original plan had been audacious, even for him. He intended to incapacitate everyone else, breaking their legs, ensuring they would fail the 3rd stage. If successful, he believed this would force the skipping of all subsequent stages, moving directly to the final procedure. But dawn had brought an unexpected twist. Oh no, something terrible has happened, one of the 5 boys he had dispatched had stammered, rushing back, his face pale with urgency. Where are the others? Mok Gyeong-un had asked, his voice calm, belying the rapid calculations in his mind. Why have you come alone? Well, the boy faltered, his eyes darting away. It seems something happened, right? Mok Gyeong-un probed gently. I'm sorry, the boy mumbled, bracing himself for a reprimand. Mok Gyeong-un shook his head, his expression unexpectedly reassuring. Is anyone going to eat you alive? Where are the others? They were all captured. The words hung in the air, a cold splash of reality. Captured, you say? This was an unexpected development. It implied that someone had not only noticed his widespread efforts, but had actively prepared a countermeasure. It struck him then. It was impossible for no one to notice their systematic leg-breaking. 4 individuals had even confronted him midway through his ruthless campaign. Clearly, a truly clever mind was at play among the trainees. Let's go, Mok Gyeong-un declared, a glint in his eye. Possessing the body of Yom-ga, who was finishing up on an upper floor, he joined forces with Ma-sung and Mo-ha-rang from the Demon Fire Hall. They moved swiftly towards the room where their teammates were reportedly held. 2 boys stood guard in the corridor outside, their expressions wary. They stiffened at Mok Gyeong-un's approach, then, with a nervous glance, opened the door. 4 figures burst forth from within, their faces etched with a mixture of anger and relief. Among them was the narrow-eyed boy Mu Jang-yak and, to Mok Gyeong-un's mild amusement, Mok Yu-chan. As soon as Mok Yu-chan saw Mok Gyeong-un, his face contorted in disgust. You crazy bastard. Are you even resorting to this kind of thing now? He spat, his voice laced with pure venom. This kind of thing? Mok Gyeong-un countered, his voice smooth, innocent. It's different from the previous stages, Mok Yu-cheon fumed, ignoring the question. We just need to pick a team leader and cooperate among teammates to conduct the inspection. So why are you doing this? Is it wrong to do this? Mok Gyeong-un interrupted, his eyes gleaming. In what way is it wrong? Mok Yu-cheon stared, exasperated. Are you even saying that now? I didn't break the rule of no killing, Mok Gyeong-un explained, his logic chillingly clear. Trainees were going to be eliminated at each stage anyway, so what's the problem with just hastening it a bit? You! Mok Yu-cheon was speechless, his arguments crumbling before Mok Gyeong-un's cold, irrefutable reasoning. The idea of breaking everyone's legs was indeed absurd, yet in the brutal context of the trials, it wasn't strictly against the rules. After all, this was a competition. A frustrated gnash of teeth escaped Mok Gyeong-un. Arguing logically was futile. Words held no power against this person. "Yeah," he conceded, his voice heavy with resignation. "There's no point in arguing with you about this." He exchanged a quick, meaningful glance with Mu Jang-yak, who stood calmly beside him. Mu Jang-yak then raised a hand, a gesture of peace, and spoke. "Hello." His voice was calm, almost pleasant. "Yes. Hello," Mok Gyeong-un replied, matching his composure. "You've come to find your teammates, right?" Mu Jang-yak asked, a subtle challenge in his tone. "That's right," Mok Gyeong-un affirmed. "If it's all right with you, I'd like you to kindly send our teammates back to us." Mu Jang-yak shook his head, a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips. "I'm sorry, but that might be a bit difficult." "You just need to hand them over," Mok Gyeong-un said, his pleasant demeanor unwavering. "So, in what way is it difficult?" "If we return the teammates to you," Mu Jang-yak explained, his eyes sharp, "you'll try to break the legs of our teammates, just like you did in the other rooms. How can we allow that?" "You know well," Mok Gyeong-un replied, his smile widening. The sight of the two leaders, locked in a polite but utterly chilling negotiation, sent shivers through their respective teammates. The tension in the corridor became a palpable thing. Mu Jang-yak's side held the advantage. They had hostages. "For now, can you leave?" Mu Jang-yak proposed, his voice a low, calculated hum. "We don't want to needlessly fight with your team and exhaust our strength. Is that so?" Mok Gyeong-un's brow rose slightly. "Yes. If you do that, we'll kindly return the captured teammates tomorrow morning." It was an unexpectedly smooth proposal, seemingly a concession. Yet Mo Ha-rang, who stood beside Mok Gyeong-un, whispered, her voice barely audible, "It's unfortunate that it's different from the goal, but it seems best to do it that way for now." This time, they have the upper hand. 16 uninjured trainees remained. Injuring their own teammates now would put them at a disadvantage. However, Mu Jang-yak's side also couldn't risk outright harming Mok Gyeong-un's team. If the numbers dwindled further, it would force a fight to fill the remaining spots, creating chaos they likely wished to avoid. "They've thought it through well," Mok Gyeong-un conceded internally. This was the optimal play for the opposing side, a carefully constructed trap. "Well, that's fine," Mok Gyeong-un said, his voice surprisingly amiable. "But isn't there a possibility like this?" "Possibility?" Mu Jang-yak prompted, his narrow eyes fixed on Mok Gyeong-un. "Yes. If you break our teammates' legs tomorrow morning and return them, won't we have no choice but to be eliminated?" Mo Ha-rang gasped, a soft "ah" escaping her lips. She hadn't considered that. It was a perfectly plausible scenario. If the other side continued to hold the hostages, they could easily backstab them just before the team leader selection, ensuring their elimination. "Mok Gyeong-un snorted, scoffing. "Do you think we're like you? At least we won't backstab." His voice was laced with self-righteous indignation. "Of course you can say that in front of us," Mok Gyeong-un retorted, a cynical amusement in his tone. "But situations always force you to make the rational choice." "Is breaking a promise the rational choice?" Mok Gyeong-un challenged, his face flushed. "Because it's advantageous for your side," Mok Gyeong-un replied simply, the undeniable truth in his words. Mok Gyeong-un clicked his tongue, his face a storm of frustration. He had expected Mok Gyeong-un to meekly accept their proposal. He hadn't anticipated him raising such a dark possibility. Mok Gyeong-un glanced at Mu Jang-yak. Mu Jang-yak merely shrugged, then addressed Mok Gyeong-un. "It's natural to have such suspicions, but you have no choice but to trust us anyway." "Other than that might be difficult," Mok Gyeong-un interrupted, his smile unwavering. "You'll be at a disadvantage if this proposal falls through, though," Mu Jang-yak countered, his voice laced with quiet menace. Mok Gyeong-un's smile broadened, revealing a glint of something dangerous. "No way. Now that it has come to this, we just need to keep 8 out of 16 people safe. Then, won't it go according to my original plan?" A collective flinch rippled through the gathered trainees. They were dumbfounded. Who would have expected him to abandon his own teammates in this situation, declaring that as long as the numbers aligned, it was fine? Did this guy have no attachment to his own team? "Don't you have any sense of camaraderie?" Mok Gyeong-un roared, his anger boiling over. The teammates who trusted and followed you. Mu Jang-yak swiftly extended a hand, a silent gesture, shaking his head at Mok Gyeong-un. He turned back to Mok Gyeong-un, his narrow eyes reflecting a newfound respect. I had a feeling, but I didn't expect you to react like that. When I heard from Yucheon, I wondered if you would really go that far. Mu Jang-yak had been forewarned about Mok Gyeong-un's ruthlessness from the end of the second stage. His doubts had been confirmed. Is that so? Mok Gyeong-un mused, his voice still pleasant. Then you know well that my words are not empty threats. That's right, Mu Jang-yak agreed, a strange satisfaction in his tone. It's a good thing we prepared for the worst-case scenario. What? Mok Gyeong-un's composure flickered. Preparing for the worst-case scenario? What did that mean? As confusion clouded Mok Gyeong-un's thoughts, Mu Jang-yak pulled something from his wrist. It was a thin, tiny needle, no larger than a finger joint, even smaller than the gold shackle embedded in the gate. What is that? Mok Gyeong-un asked, his voice low, a hint of unease entering his tone. The 4 captured members of your team, Mu Jang-yak explained, his eyes glinting. And all of our team members, we've inserted this into the acupuncture point on their waists. A beat of silence. If this cartilage needle is inserted for half a day, Mu Jang-yak continued, his voice calm, delivering a devastating blow, they will limp for about 10 days. In severe cases, they won't be able to walk for half a month. Mok Gyeong-un's eyes narrowed, a sharp, dangerous gleam replacing his earlier amusement. He had inserted that needle not only into his captured teammates, but also into his own team? How can I believe that? Mok Gyeong-un challenged, his voice cold. Mu Jang-yak simply motioned for Mok Gyeong-un to remove his upper garment, exposing his back. Mok Gyeong-un, though reluctantly, complied. With practiced ease, Mu Jang-yak began striking specific acupuncture points on Mok Gyeong-un's back, hidden from direct view. A series of rapid, rhythmic taps echoed in the hushed corridor. Then, a soft pop. The needle emerged from Mok Gyeong-un's back. Even Mo Ha-ha-reng clicked her tongue in disbelief. Who could have predicted such a drastic, self-sacrificing measure? Inserting cartilage needles into their own teammates, all to prepare for this precise situation? Mu Jang-yak's narrow eyes met Mok Gyeong-un's, a triumphant smile on his face. Now, what are you going to do? Even if you take Mok Gyeong-un with you after removing the needle, if I don't cooperate, everyone will be unable to walk properly after half a day. Then, you and your entire team will be eliminated. It was a do-or-die countermeasure, a mutually assured destruction. If this plan failed, both teams would suffer debilitating injuries, resulting in a mass elimination. His mind is truly exceptional, Mo Ha-reng thought, a reluctant admiration forming within her. It was an exquisite move, a strategy that accurately predicted and countered Mok Gyeong-un's unpredictable nature. This time, it seemed, even Mok Gyeong-un had no choice but to accept it. Mok Gyeong-un's lips twitched, a strange expression on his face. This is really interesting, he muttered. Mo Ha-reng frowned. He was as good as defeated in this battle of wits, yet he found the situation interesting? As she puzzled over his reaction, Mok Gyeong-un spoke again, his gaze fixed on Mu Jang-yak. It's a tough decision. Is there a need to ponder? Mu Jang-yak asked, a confident smirk spreading across his face. No matter what tricks you use, in this situation, no. Mok Gyeong-un interrupted, his voice dropping to a low, chilling whisper. I'm deliberating whether it would be better to kill you now or let you live. A cold shiver ran down Mo Ha-reng's spine. A collective gasp, barely audible, escaped those listening. Mu Jang-yak carried a lightness about him, a buoyant cheerfulness that unfurled like a banner, effortlessly lifting the spirits of his team. Even now, amidst the lingering tension from the night's events, his smile was a beacon, keeping their resolve strong. Yet, beneath that bright facade, a subtle tension coiled within him. His gaze, seemingly casual, flickered ceaselessly toward Mok Gyeong-un whenever he thought no one was watching. He had, without a doubt, protected his team, proving his mettle as a leader from their very first day together. But Mok Gyeong-un had irrevocably settled in his thoughts, a constant, unsettling presence. The memory of last night's confrontation replayed, vivid and sharp. No, Mok Gyeong-un had stated, his voice calm, chillingly composed. "I'm deliberating whether it would be better to kill you now or let you live." A stunned silence had fallen over Mu Jung-yak's team. Then furious shouts erupted. "Crazy bastard! Do you even realize the situation you're in?" They knew Mok Gyeong-un was cornered. Any strike, any injury inflicted would lead to instant disqualification for all of them. This was a bluff, an empty threat born of desperation. "Do as you please," a team member had roared, stepping forward. "If you're trying to get us all disqualified, do you think we'll just sit back and let it happen?" "Bring it on," Mok Yu-cheon, his half-brother, echoed the sentiment, his stance shifting into a combat readiness. They had trusted Mu Jung-yak's plan implicitly, their confidence radiating. Mu Jung-yak, however, remained silent, his eyes fixed on Mok Gyeong-un. A cold knot formed in his stomach. What was this man relying on? Mok Yu-cheon had recounted the astonishing events of the second trial, painting a picture of a cunning, unpredictable opponent. That knowledge had fueled Mu Jung-yak's meticulously crafted strategy, a plan he believed was flawless. Yet Mok Gyeong-un's unsettling demeanor, his level tone, and his inscrutable gaze defied all analysis. Mu Jung-yak prided himself on his ability to read others, to dissect their emotions and intentions through subtle cues. But Mok Gyeong-un was an enigma, a blank slate that offered no answers. Was this a genuine threat or a masterful deception? Was he simply unable to control his own erratic emotions, or was there something deeper, more calculated at play? Mu Jung-yak had to admit Mok Gyeong-un possessed a cunning disposition, not unlike his own. He hadn't told his team, but his initial strategy, had it been successful, involved breaking the legs of Mok Gyeong-un's team members at daybreak, precisely as Mok Gyeong-un had suggested. That brutal act would have ensured their elimination. Mok Gyeong-un had seen through it all. Perhaps that was why his words still echoed, profoundly unsettling. Then Mok Gyeong-un had chuckled, a low, unsettling sound, and fixed his gaze directly on Mu Jung-yak. "Let's end it here for now." "What?" Mok Yu-cheon spluttered, disbelief warring with anger. Was Mok Gyeong-un truly babbling about mercy, even when he was clearly at a disadvantage? Mu Jung-yak's side boasted 3 Peak Realm experts, Yan Mu-ung, the formidable guard of the hostages, Mok Yu-chan himself, and Mu Jung-yak. They had the numerical and martial superiority. "Stop bluffing, Mok Gyeong-un," a team member scoffed. "Think what you will," Mok Gyeong-un replied, unperturbed. "Send 2 of your members over here. To be fair, we should also hold hostages until morning. We're the ones holding the knife, yet you dare." "Fine." The word, spoken by Mu Jung-yak, sliced through the indignant protests. His team members, including Mok Yu-cheon, stared at him, bewildered by his sudden acquiescence. There was no strategic advantage in this concession. "They've made a concession," Mu Jung-yak explained, his voice low, "so there's no point in further provoking them." "But," Mok Yu-cheon began, "trust me." So, an uneasy truce was forged, hostages exchanged, and the night passed in a tense, silent agreement. But just as the exchange was finalized, Mok Gyeong-un had murmured, his voice barely a whisper, "What a pity. I had hoped you wouldn't be so wise." A strange chill, sharp and unsettling, had snaked down Mu Jung-yak's spine. Who was this man? Mu Jung-yak had long prided himself on his intellectual superiority, never deeming any of his peers, not Yon Mu-ung, not Yom-ga, not Mo-ha-rang, not even Moku-chun, worthy of his full attention. Yet, for the first time, a profound wariness, a sense of genuine threat, bloomed within him. Mok Gyeong-un. If he ever became an enemy, Mu Jung-yak knew, he would have to be eliminated. The elimination of nearly a quarter of the cadets before the trials even began was an unprecedented event. It had sparked considerable controversy, but with no rules explicitly violated, the authorities had allowed the trials to proceed. However, a new constraint had been immediately introduced. From now on, until all trials are completed, any private fights or acts of harming each other among the cadets are strictly prohibited. This was a clear attempt to prevent further disruption. The third trial, a sword formation test, required cadets to subdue an opponent using the heaven and earth, 8 inscriptions formation. This complex sword formation, based on the changes of the 8 trigrams and developed by the previous leader of the Heaven and Earth Society, demanded perfect execution. A mere 3 days were allotted for practice, a blink in the eye for such intricate movements. Yet the remaining 16 individuals, the elite of Corpse Blood Valley's cadets, proved their exceptional skill. Both teams navigated the Heaven and Earth, 8 inscriptions formation with remarkable ease. Mok Gyeong-un, however, surpassed them all, securing the top score. While Mok Gyeong-un's team skillfully subdued their opponents, Mok Gyeong-un's team had utterly overwhelmed theirs, a flawless victory without a single injury. As a team leader, his judgment and execution of the formation were deemed superior, undeniably earning him the highest marks. The 4th trial plunged the cadets into a trap-filled maze, cloaked in darkness. The objective was simple: navigate the labyrinth before an incense stick, burning steadily, consumed a third of its length. Success within this tight time frame earned the qualification of a unit leader and passage to the final trial. Emerging before 2/3 of the incense burned granted the qualification of a déjou, but forfeited the right to the final challenge. Failure meant elimination with the qualification of a senior warrior. The previous Iron Ball competition, initially scheduled for this round, had been skipped due to the dwindling number of participants. This omission, Mok Gyeong-un knew, was precisely as he had intended. 16 cadets entered the darkened maze. The results were stark. 6 individuals emerged within the initial 1/3 of the incense burning time, securing their spot in the final trial. 5 others made it out before 2/3 of the incense had burned, earning the déjou qualification. The remaining 5, unable to find their way in time, were eliminated as senior warriors. Senior warrior Gwak Moon-gi, observing the results, turned to Valley Master Lee Ji-yom. Although there were 2 variables, the expected individuals passed. He spoke of the 2 hostages from the righteous faction's Yeonmok Sword Manor clan sent under the society leader's orders. Gwak Moon-gi had assumed they would be eliminated in the early trials. His expectations had been thoroughly shattered. "I see. It's them." Lee Ji-yom's gaze drifted to the 6 figures standing side by side in the plaza. The ones who had overcome the maze were Mok Gyeong-un, Mok Yukyeon, Yom-ga from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave, Yeon-mu-ung from the Esoteric Realm Gate, Mo-ha Rang from the Demon Fire Hall, and Mok Gyeong-un. "Who passed through the maze the fastest?" Lee Ji-yom inquired, a hint of curiosity in his voice. "It was Mok Gyeong-un." "Mok Gyeong-un?" A faint, knowing smile touched Lee Ji-yom's lips. He had expected it. Even with his perceived loss of martial prowess, someone of Mok Gyeong-un's caliber would naturally excel. A snort echoed only in Mok Gyeong-un's mind, a familiar presence speaking. How much time did he take? He emerged when the incense had burned about 1/6, not 1/3. 1/6? Lee Ji-yom's eyes gleamed with renewed interest. This was far beyond his expectations. Such speed suggested he hadn't navigated a maze at all, but rather sprinted across flat ground. "We were all so greatly surprised," Gwak Moon-gi admitted, still dumbfounded. Even with exceptional chi sensitivity, Mok Gyeong-un's feat bordered on the absurd. How could a 17-year-old, seemingly of merely first-rate martial arts, outpace seasoned peak realm experts? Had he concealed his true martial arts? It seemed impossible for someone so young to possess a realm higher than Gwak Moon-gi himself. What kind of prodigy was this boy? Lee Ji-yom clicked his tongue, a sound of impressed resignation. Who emerged second fastest? It was Yom-ga from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. Oh ho! Yom-ga passed through the maze when about half of the incense had burned. This, too, was a remarkable achievement. Historically, no one had ever cleared the maze within half the incense burning time. Today, both Mok Gyeong-un and Yom-ga had shattered that record, traversing the dark maze as if it were bathed in sunlight. "The Vermilion Slaughter Cave has sent a capable talent," Lee Ji-yom mused. "It seems so." Gwak Moon-gi agreed, though a flicker of sympathy crossed his face. Yom-ga's misfortune was the presence of Mok Gyeong-un, a complete monster who eclipsed all other achievements. Who was third? Mok Gyeong-un and Mo-ha Rang from the Demon Fire Hall passed before a quarter of the incense burned out. while Mok Gyeong-un and Yan Mu-ung from the Esoteric Realm Gate passed within 1/3. The level of this year's cadets has significantly improved. Despite the variables and disruptions, this was the first time since Lee Ji-yom had taken charge of Corpse Blood Valley that more than 1 or 2 individuals had passed within a quarter of the incense burning time. Passing within 1/3 alone signified exceptional key sensitivity. For the officers, it was a successful selection process, yielding truly exceptional talents. "What shall we do?" Gwapmungi sighed. "The top score is isn't it already determined?" Lee Ji-yom finished, a wry amusement in his voice. "Indeed," Gwakmungi replied, a hint of reluctance in his tone. A hostage from the righteous faction, a complete outsider, was poised to claim the top score for the 3rd time, pushing aside the main sect's brightest talents. It was undeniably unpleasant. Yan Mok's sword manner indeed. How had they trained their disciples so effectively that 2 of them had reached the final trial of Corpse Blood Valley? Could the sect's warriors truly accept 2 mere hostages assuming high positions within the main sect? Lee Ji-yom, standing on the platform before the plaza, held aloft the top score plaque. He announced, his voice carrying. "Mok Gyeong-un, step forward." "Yes." Mok Gyeong-un walked forward, his expression impassive. Lee Ji-yom gave him a brief, assessing glance before handing him the plaque. Then, addressing everyone, he declared, "The 4th top score is awarded to Mok Gyeong-un, who passed through the trial the fastest." The other 5 individuals standing in the plaza watched Mok Gyeong-un, their expressions a mix of resignation and surprise. For most, this was the 3rd time Mok Gyeong-un had claimed the top spot. The initial shock had long faded into grudging acceptance. But what Lee Ji-yom said next ignited a fresh wave of astonishment. Prior to the final trial, those who have received top scores will be rewarded by our sect. Rewards? Their minds reeled. They had believed it was merely an honorary title, a mark of distinction. Now, a tangible prize was being offered. Only 2 individuals held top scores, Mok Gyeong-un and Mu Jang-yak. Mok Gyeong-un possessed 3. Regardless of the benefits, it seemed he held a monopoly. Those who have obtained 1 top score will be rewarded with the Heavenly Earth Pill, crafted from our sect's secret method. A collective gasp swept through the cadets. Yon Mu-un and Mo Ha-rang couldn't conceal their utter astonishment. The Heavenly Earth Pill was a legendary medicinal pill, rumored to take a decade to produce and mature, its ingredients alone worth 1,000 gold. Its quantity was severely limited. To think it would be given as a reward was beyond comprehension. Mu Jang-yak, though outwardly composed, felt a surge of elation. The Heavenly Earth Pill, a refined elixir, promised the equivalent of 10 to 15 years of cultivation. A snort echoed only in Mok Gyeong-un's mind. Damn it, he changed the name. The name? Mok Gyeong-un felt a flicker of confusion. The internal voice, belonging to the former Lunar Vein Lord, Chung Ryong, seethed. "It's not Heavenly Earth Pill, but Moonlight Pill. The Heaven and Earth Society's secret method. My ass." Her anger suggested a deeper, untold history. As they silently pondered, Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Ji-yom continued. "Here is the benefit for those who possess 2 top score plaques. They may enter the Corpse Blood Valley treasure vault and obtain a secret manual of their choice. Naturally, most of them are secret manuals of the ascending martial arts." Ascending martial arts? The revelation of the second benefit electrified the plaza. Every cadet's interest, once piqued, now surged with fervent desire. A hushed anticipation settled over the assembly as the mention of the legendary ascending martial arts echoed through the air. For many, a single phrase ignited a deep-seated craving. Mu Jang-yak's face, usually composed, crumpled with a fleeting shadow of regret. He had often heard whispers of the Corpse Blood Valley treasure vault, tales of its unparalleled collection. It allegedly housed not only pristine copies of techniques from the Heaven and Earth Society's primary headquarters, but also unique scrolls, fragments of martial arts lost even to the main sect itself. Any martial artist not stirred by such a prospect would be an anomaly. Mok Gyeong-un shared this pervasive interest. His passion for martial arts burned fiercely, a constant flame within him. He simply could not remain indifferent to such a profound repository. These were, after all, the ascending martial arts of the Heaven and Earth Society, a colossal power commanding a third of the entire martial world. The very thought of their hidden techniques sparked an intense curiosity. Yet, amidst the collective awe and yearning, Mok Gyeong-un stood strangely unburdened. His gaze, distant and analytical, betrayed no strong emotion. Was this truly a special reward? He harbored an unwavering goal to cultivate strength for revenge. He questioned whether merely accumulating a vast array of techniques would genuinely aid him on that solitary path. The more, the better, a resonant voice whispered in his mind. Jung Ryong, ever observant, seemed to pluck the thoughts directly from his contemplation. Her insight, sharp and clear, cut through his hesitation. Learning many martial arts doesn't necessarily make one vastly stronger, she explained, her voice devoid of judgment. But the more martial arts one knows, the broader their perspective becomes, and their range of experience also expands. Broadening one's perspective. The concept resonated with him, a subtle shift in his understanding. If that was the case, perhaps there was indeed merit in absorbing as much knowledge as possible. He considered her words, allowing the implications to settle. On the raised platform, the imposing figure of Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Ji-yom broke the silence. His voice, resonant and calm, drew all attention. It's been quite a while since someone obtained 3 top-score plaques. A murmur rippled through the cadets below. Senior warrior Gwak Mun-gi, standing near the platform's edge, nodded slowly. It seems so. Has it been about 8 years? That guy, no, it's not that guy anymore. It's been a long time since then. Indeed, Lee Ji-yom affirmed. Is this the 3rd time? Mok Gyeong-un, standing directly in front, felt a peculiar stir of curiosity. He knew he was now only the 3rd person in Corpse Blood Valley's long history to achieve this feat. He raised his voice, the question escaping him before he could fully censor it. I'm just asking out of curiosity, but has anyone ever obtained 4 or more? 6 trials existed within Corpse Blood Valley, though only the first 3 and the final one offered top-score plaques. Realistically, 4 was the absolute maximum one could achieve. Gwak Mun-gi's face, already stern, twisted into a fierce frown. A sharp rebuke formed on his lips. How dare you ask the Valley Master, Gwak Daiju? Lee Ji-yom's voice, a quiet but firm undertone, stopped the warrior mid-sentence. His gaze met Gwak Mun-gi's, a silent reminder hanging in the air. Right now, he is a unit leader. Gwak Mun-gi bit down hard on his lower lip. The words tasted like ash. This mere brat, this upstart, now held a higher position than himself, a seasoned senior warrior. His pride smarted, a raw wound in his heart. Yet, defying the Valley Master was unthinkable. He swallowed his indignation, his tone stiffening with reluctant respect. Unit Leader Mok, the trials are not over yet. Please refrain from casually asking questions to the Valley Master. Mok Gyeong-un simply looked at Lee Ji-yom, his expression unreadable. Gwak Mun-gi's face contorted further, his jaw clenched tight in simmering fury. He watched, incredulous, as Lee Ji-yom, against all precedent, answered the audacious query. Since the establishment of Corpse Blood Valley, there has been only one person who acquired all the top-score plaques. Gwak Mun-gi blinked, his eyes wide with a perplexed disbelief. The Valley Master, known for his stoic demeanor, was answering a mere cadet's impertinent question. Even those on the verge of the final stage rarely received such gentle treatment. A chilling thought surfaced. Could this young man truly be a spy, sent by the society leader himself? If so, then a measure of courtesy, however begrudging, might be warranted. But why employ a hostage from the righteous faction to test or monitor the Valley Master? The entire situation felt profoundly unexpected. Mok Gyeong-un's eyes, however, gleamed with sudden interest. All of them? He himself had never experienced a formation before, nor had he ever truly commanded others. The sword formation trial had therefore eluded his mastery. Yet someone had managed to obtain every single one. They must be incredible. He had only properly cultivated martial arts for a short time, a mere fraction of a lifetime. The sheer number of top-score plaques he had amassed was already remarkable. Had he begun his training earlier with proper guidance from the outset, he might have become the second person to achieve such a legendary feat. It's too scary to ask. His pure curiosity burned, wanting to know the identity of that unparalleled individual. But Gwak Mun-gi's fiery glare, a silent promise of retribution, made further inquiry impossible. Lee Ji-yong seemed to notice the unspoken tension. "If your doubts have been resolved," the Valley Master said, his voice returning to its usual measured cadence, "I will now announce the reward for those who have obtained 3 top-score plaques." Yes, those who have obtained 3 top-score plaques. The air vibrated with collective anticipation. Every eye in the assembly fixed upon Lee Ji-yong's face. The previous reward, for 2 plaques, had been significant. What unimaginable benefits awaited those who had achieved 3? "Apart from the final trial," Lee Ji-yong declared, his words sending a ripple of shock through the crowd, "they can request guidance from one of the sect's top masters, namely the 5 kings, 3 chief masters, or the 4 valley masters, the 12 elders." A collective gasp swept through the gathering. The reaction was immediate, visceral. Mu Jang-yak, Yan Mu-ung from the esoteric realm gate, and Mo Ha Rang from the demon fire hall especially, were visibly stunned. As members of the Heaven and Earth Society, they understood the profound implications of this benefit better than anyone. To be able to request guidance from one of the Heaven and Earth Society's top masters? The thought was staggering. They provide rewards to this extent? A wave of pure, unadulterated envy washed over them. Throughout one's entire life, how often would such an opportunity arise? To receive guidance from peak realm masters, or even supreme masters at the transcendent realm, was an almost unheard-of privilege. These extraordinary figures were the most prominent, the most revered, within the entire Heaven and Earth Society. The very thought ignited a fierce longing. Even Mok Gyeong-un, who had initially listened with casual interest, registered the intense envy radiating from those around him. A sudden jolt of realization struck him. Ah! Among the Heaven and Earth Society's most formidable executives, 2 were counted among the legendary 6 heavens and 8 stars. The 6 heavens and 8 stars were widely regarded as the supreme masters of the martial world, transcending factional divides. 2 of the revered 5 kings were included in that elite group. A true Grand Master at the elder level, someone who had surpassed the transcendent realm and attained the realm of transformation. If the benefit was to receive guidance from one of them, damn it. Having left the righteous faction, he found himself unexpectedly envious. It remained unclear whether this guidance would entail becoming a disciple or simply learning specific martial arts. Regardless, the chance to receive direct counsel from such peerless experts was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In truth, it was an incredible stroke of fortune. "There's no need to think about this, mortal." Chung Rae-young's voice, calm and assured, broke through Mok Gyeong-un's thoughts. Even she, with her ancient wisdom, considered this a remarkably good benefit. "There are 2 experts in the realm of transformation. Choose one of them and learn from them what you can't learn from this venerable one. As they have surpassed transcendent realm, it will greatly aid your enlightenment." If Chung Ryong herself deemed it worthwhile, then it was indeed a valuable opportunity. As they quietly processed the revelation, Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Ji-yong continued, his gaze sweeping over the cadets. "If there is someone you desire, it would be wise to consider it in advance. If you enter the main headquarters, the opportunity will be given. Yes. The final trial will be conducted once you arrive at the main headquarters tomorrow. Before that, the holders of the top score plaques will receive their rewards, and the rest will have time to rest." Lee Ji-yong moved as if to step down from the platform, signaling the conclusion of the announcements. At that precise moment, Mok Gyeong-un spoke again, his voice cutting through the lingering silence. "May I ask what benefits are given to those who have obtained all the top score plaques?" This brat again. Senior warrior Gwak Mun-gi's jaw tightened. He glared at Mok Gyeong-un, a fresh wave of displeasure washing over him. The audacity of this young man, questioning the Valley Master again without restraint. It was utterly displeasing. They can receive guidance from the society leader. A profound, absolute silence fell upon the assembly. Gwak Mun-gi watched the stunned reactions of the cadets below, a strange amusement flickering in his eyes. Though he still couldn't fathom the Valley Master's unusual leniency towards this young man, Witnessing the sheer shock on their faces was undeniably satisfying. Why is he doing this? Mok Gyeong-un, however, remained utterly bewildered by their reactions. What was so surprising? Since the Valley Master has left, Unit Leader Mok should also step down from the platform. Senior Warrior Gwak Moon-gi's voice, strained and taut, cut through the quiet. Mok Gyeong-un descended the platform, his brow furrowed in confusion. He turned to Moha-harang, who stood nearby, a puzzled expression on his face. Is receiving guidance from the society leader such a shocking matter? Moha-harang stared at him, her eyes wide, as if he had just asked if the sky was blue. Why was he acting like this? She opened her mouth to speak, her voice trembling slightly with the profound weight of her words. The society leader is one of the 6 heavens, regarded as the pinnacle of the current martial arts world. Putting everything else aside, to receive guidance from one of the 6 strongest individuals in the world. Her voice faded, unable to articulate the full scope of such an astonishing reward. That was the sheer magnitude of the prize for achieving all the top score plaques. Of course, no one in their current batch had managed it, but if they had known about this prerequisite from the beginning, perhaps every single cadet would have faced the trials with a life-or-death determination. Such was the supreme and fearsome reputation of the 6 heavens. Is it that incredible? Their reactions, even more intense than for guidance from the executives, clearly indicated that it was. The revelation sent a tremor through the gathered martial artists. 6 heavens? Ha! Chung Ryung's voice echoed in Mok Gyeong-un's mind, laced with an unmistakable irritation. Through Moha-harang's words, she had also learned that the Heaven and Earth Society's leader was indeed one of the 6 heavens. Her displeasure was palpable, utterly understandable. For her, the very existence of the Heaven and Earth Society's leader, in both the past and present, represented the ultimate object of her long-held grudge. The challenges have grown significantly. Mok Gyeong-un clicked his tongue inwardly. The Heaven and Earth Society's leader, a figure near the pinnacle of the martial arts world. While his grandfather's revenge took precedence, fulfilling Chongryong's ancient grievance was proving to be a monumental, increasingly daunting task. The dense forest, not far from Corpse Blood Valley's main building, offered a muted quietness. Mok Gyeong-un walked steadily, following the rigid back of senior warrior Gwak Moon-gi. A palpable displeasure emanated from Gwak Moon-gi, a silent barrier between them. He maintained a determined silence throughout the journey, his steps firm and unyielding. Soon they reached a steep, almost sheer cliff face. Its rough, unyielding surface seemed to defy ascent, even with the most agile likeness skills. Gwak Moon-gi pointed at the formidable rock wall without looking back. Follow closely. A soft whoosh accompanied his movements. Gwak Moon-gi launched himself upward, his lightness skills fluid and practiced. He found footholds with practiced ease, scaling the seemingly impossible ascent at a considerable speed. He wondered, a petty thought forming in his mind, if the fellow could truly keep up. He had never truly witnessed Mok Gyeong-un's lightness skill proficiency. Could he follow along on such a perilous vertical path? Tap, tap, tap! A faint sound like falling pebbles drifted from directly below. Gwak Moon-gi glanced down, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. Huh? Mok Gyeong-un was already directly beneath him, matching his ascent with effortless grace. This bastard. It was absurd. Gwak Moon-gi had spent years navigating Corpse Blood Valley, knowing every shortcut, every hidden path. He moved with an innate speed and familiarity unmatched by others. But this young man was different. Moreover, with mere first-rate martial arts, how could he possibly ascend the cliff at a speed comparable to his own? The reason was simple, almost infuriatingly so. There it is. Mok Gyeong-un was merely following Gwak Moon-gi's exact path, meticulously memorizing each spot where the senior warrior had stepped. Wherever Gwak Moon-gi passed, there were undoubtedly footholds to step on, cracks to cling to. By remembering these and replicating the movements, the ascent became surprisingly uncomplicated. Gwak Moon-gi clicked his tongue, a soft, annoyed sound. Damn bastard. He had intended to teach the arrogant young man a lesson, perhaps reprimand him for a unit leader's inability to keep pace. But the plan had been rendered meaningless, replaced by a fresh wave of irritation. Tap! Finally, Gwak Moon-gi reached the top of the cliff, where the rock face appeared completely blocked. Yet, his body passed through the solid wall with an ethereal grace, as if it were mere mist. A formation? Mok Gyeong-un recognized the sensation. Thanks to diviner Jo Yui-gong, he had experienced formations before. Without a moment's hesitation, he followed Gwak Moon-gi, stepping directly through the illusory cliff face. Upon entering, a rush of air, cool and damp, enveloped him. Whoosh! A vast cavern was revealed, its shadowy depths illuminated by numerous flickering torches. In the center, a man in his 50s, his face a roadmap of scars, sat upon a crude stone chair, his arms crossed. Gwak Moon-gi stood before him, having already entered. Tisk. Gwak Moon-gi couldn't hide his disappointment as he watched Mok Gyeong-un pass through the blocked wall in a single, fluid movement. He had hoped for some struggle, some sign of weakness. The scarred man stood, his gaze assessing. I wondered what was going on, but it's been a while. Yes, it has. It's been about 8 years since then, right? That's correct. So, I brought him here for the reward and to let him enter the treasure vault. At Gwak Moon-gi's words, the scarred man turned his attention fully to Mok Gyeong-un. A puzzled expression settled on his face. He's a peculiar brat. He appears to be at most a first-rate level, but how did he obtain 3 top-score plaques? Based on the man's keen chi perception, Mok Gyeong-un's cultivation was indeed barely at the first-rate realm. Yet, to stand here, he needed 3 top-score plaques. It seemed an impossible feat with martial arts of such a basic level. Mok Gyeong-un met his gaze evenly. Excuse me, but who are you? Are you referring to me? Yes. Ha 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 ha. The man laughed, a hearty, booming sound that echoed through the cavern. I am the guardian of the treasure vault here in Corpse Blood Valley. The guardian? Gwak Moon-gi, ever vigilant, interjected with a warning tone. He is unit leader Yang Mu-won, who is in charge of the treasure vault. If you displease him, you may end up trapped in the mechanical traps of the treasure vault, so show some respect. That's enough. Yang Mu-won waved a dismissive hand, cutting Gwak Moon-gi off. Since when have I cared about such things? Their dynamic was oddly mismatched. Yang Mu-won gestured towards Gwak Moon-gi. You may leave now. What? Or are you planning to keep waiting here? You should know that it's not allowed. I understand. I will step back and wait below. Gwak Moon-gi's voice was clipped, frustration barely contained. He passed back through the illusory cliff wall and disappeared outside. As Gwak Moon-gi departed, unit leader Yang Mu-won turned back to Mok Gyeong-un. Shall we finish the conversation we were having earlier? How did you manage to obtain 3 top-score plaques? Mok Gyeong-un tilted his head slightly, his expression guileless. Naturally, I obtained them because I performed better than others, right? Yang Mu-won, who had been frowning, suddenly erupted into a hearty laugh. Ha 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 ha. Right. That's a valid point. The Valley Master wouldn't have given the top-score plaques to someone worthless. Mok Gyeong-un offered no reaction, his face impassive. Yang Mu-won, mid-boisterous laugh, felt a sudden awkwardness. He scratched his head. Oh my. The person who had come 8 years ago had at least some level of communication. This kid's reactions were remarkably dull, making conversation uninteresting. Still, his task wasn't to engage in pleasantries. Unit leader Yang Mu-won turned and gestured towards the depths of the cave. Follow me. Yes, Mok Gyeong-un fell into step behind him. Yang Mu-won pointed his finger into the cavern's shadowed recesses. If you go inside, there is a treasure vault containing secret manuals. As you may have heard, you can only take out 1 secret manual from the treasure vault. Even then, you must copy it here before leaving with it. Yes. You will be given about 1 seiken, 2 hours, to carefully make your selection. If you fail to choose anything within that time, you must leave empty-handed according to the rules. Understood? Yes. And there is a place marked with a red line. It's best if you don't enter there. What? Mok Gyeong-un questioned, his curiosity piqued. Yang Mu-won spoke, his voice taking on a subtly frightening tone. In the past, something happened there. You don't need to know that much. Anyway, if you cross the red line, you'll see something truly terrifying. So, don't ignore my warning. Something terrifying? He was rambling incoherently, making it difficult to understand his meaning. As he pondered, a large iron door came into view. Unit Leader Yang Mu-won placed his hand on the empty wall beside it, fiddling with something hidden. Creak! Thud! The massive iron door opened on its own, revealing the interior. Inside, the cavern stretched far wider than the entrance, its walls on all sides densely packed with secret manuals. They lined every surface, a vast, imposing library of martial knowledge. Yang Mu-won grinned, gesturing inside. If you haven't thought about it beforehand, just selecting the desired secret manual will be quite a headache. I'll let you know when the time is up, so remember, 1 second. Yes, now go inside. Mok Gyeong-un took a step, then paused, a sudden thought striking him. Ah, may I ask one thing? What is it? I can only take out 1 secret manual, right?
That's right.
Just skimming through them shouldn't be a problem, right? Yang Mu-won blinked, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. What kind of question is that? Of course, you need to skim through the contents to choose a suitable secret manual. We won't make an issue out of something like that. Mok Gyeong-un's lips curled, a faint, almost imperceptible curve. That's quite fortunate. He stepped into the treasure vault. The cavern pulsed with the quiet energy of countless lifetimes. Mok Gyeong-un stood utterly astonished, his gaze sweeping across the vast expanse of bookshelves that spiraled from the floor to the lofty ceiling. Every inch was laden with secret manuals, their spines a silent testament to forgotten arts and incredible powers. He had never witnessed such an immense collection of books in his life, not even a fraction of it. These were not just books, they were the very essence of martial arts, each promising a new sword technique, a unique footwork, a potent palm strike, or a profound cultivation method. The sheer volume overwhelmed him, leaving him adrift in a sea of knowledge, unsure where to even begin. 1 shichen. The time limit had seemed generous initially. Now, facing this veritable mountain of ancient wisdom, he understood the true brevity of that allotted period. It felt like a cruel jest. Just then, a familiar ancient voice echoed within his mind. They are all useless. Mok Gyeong-un barely whispered his reply. What? The ones placed around the perimeter, Chung Ryung clarified, her tone laced with disdain. They are merely secret manuals coveted by those aiming for third-rate, or at most, first-rate martial arts. Is that so? Mok Gyeong-un felt a pang of inadequacy. Can't you tell at a glance? Her exasperation was almost palpable. I can't tell at a glance, he admitted, his voice soft. Chung Ryung clicked her tongue, a sound that resonated oddly in the cavern's silence. Well, it's impossible for a mortal like you, who has just entered the path, to possess such discerning eyes. He knew she wasn't entirely wrong. His growth had been unprecedented, fueled by fortuitous encounters, a transcendent memory, and a body that miraculously adapted to it all. Compared to ordinary prodigies, he was progressing at an unimaginable pace. Yet, the brief duration of his journey meant his insight into the vast, intricate world of martial arts was naturally limited. He simply lacked the foundational knowledge. You should be grateful to this venerable one, mortal. Her pride was evident. Is that so? He humored her. With your insignificant insight, you would only waste precious time, unable to discern anything truly useful, wouldn't you? Well, that's true. Mok Gyeong-un agreed without a hint of false pride. He saw no reason to argue about such trivial matters when genuine assistance was being offered. Chung Ryung seemed momentarily deflated by his ready acquiescence. It was a strange response for someone who so often boasted of his own extraordinary talents. Will you choose for me? Mok Gyeong-un asked, cutting to the chase. Didn't I tell you? She retorted, recovering her composure. This venerable one will select the useful ones. First, go to the upper floor. Upper floor? Mok Gyeong-un looked around, bewildered. Was there even an upper level in this immense space? He saw only towering bookshelves. Can't you see that the bookshelves reach the ceiling? She pointed out. Ah. Upon closer inspection, he noticed wooden supports and makeshift walkways winding through the shelves, allowing access to levels 2 and 3. Her knowledge of the layout was uncanny. It suggested a familiarity he found puzzling. As he began to move, navigating the maze of shelves, he asked, Have you been here before? Impossible. Her denial was swift. But you seem to know quite a lot. You told me to go upstairs without even properly examining the secret manuals down here. Mok Gyeong-un pressed, intrigued. Did she somehow know what lay above? Jung-ryung chuckled then, a dry, airy sound. Judging from the structure, they have replicated the treasure vault from the main headquarters. The main headquarters. The implication hung in the air. Yes, there is also a treasure vault in the main headquarters. It seems they have brought copies of the secret manuals from there and placed them here. Ah? Is that so? It seems like a hassle when only a few people would properly see them. Mok Gyeong-un mused. Why bother with copies when only the truly valuable manuals would suffice? Jung-ryung snorted. Ha! If you don't know, just stay quiet. What? The fact that they created a treasure vault filled with copies, deep in the mountains and cliffs, rather than within the main headquarters itself, is likely a precautionary measure. Precautionary measure? Perhaps in case of an unexpected invasion, she offered, her voice thoughtful. Invasion? You mean if the main headquarters is attacked? Yes. Think about it. No matter how powerful a martial arts sect may be, as time passes and generations change, it's common for them to weaken and collapse, like the natural order of things. Ah, so they made copies in advance? He understood now. Probably. If the main headquarters were to be attacked, it would be natural to burn or destroy the treasure vault to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. While destroying it is easy, moving or protecting it is difficult, so they prepared in advance. Mok Gyeong-un nodded, the logic clear. Indeed. I don't know whose idea this was, but it's a good strategy. I agree. He recognized the immense value martial artists placed on these manuals. They were more than just books. They were legacies, power, and prestige. Moving such a vast collection in a hurry would be impossible. This was a sensible precaution. A sharp, grating sound shattered the quiet. Creak! Mok Gyeong-un grimaced. It seems they don't maintain it as much as I thought. The wooden frame leading to the upper level groaned and swayed under his weight, a stark contrast to the expected pristine condition of a treasure vault. Perhaps its infrequent use, being a mere copy in this secluded valley, was the reason. What are you going to do? Jung-ryung's voice held a hint of amusement. What do you think I'll do? Mok Gyeong-un grinned. Knowing your personality, you won't be satisfied with just one or two necessary items. She knew him well. Since we're here, it would be nice to look for useful things all around. His transcendent memory, a gift that seemed to unfold new possibilities with each passing day, would be put to the ultimate test here. Jung-ryung chuckled again, a rare sound of genuine delight. She had been curious about the true extent of his ability, this almost mythical talent to perfectly memorize anything after a single glance. This cavern, this endless sea of knowledge, was the perfect crucible for it. As they ascended, below, at the treasure vault's entrance, Unit Leader Yang Mu-1 was about to light an incense stick, the traditional method for measuring time. He paused, his gaze fixed on the figure quickly scaling the shelves. That kid, Yang Mu-1 thought, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. How had Mok Gyeong-un reached the upper level so quickly? The lowest shelves held only basic techniques, suitable for the common martial artist. The true treasures, the profound arts, began on the second floor. Yet, Mok Gyeong-un had barely glanced at the lower sections before heading straight up. His movements were so fluid, so deliberate, it was as if he had been here countless times before. A moment of puzzlement settled on Unit Leader Yang Mu-1's face before he decided to dismiss it. His duty was simply to guard the vault, to ensure nothing was taken without authorization. Just then, Mok Gyeong-un pulled a secret manual from a shelf. Did he find something useful? Yang Mu-1 wondered. From his distance, he couldn't discern the title, but he knew the second floor and above held many ascending martial arts, techniques aimed at the peak realm and beyond. Whatever the boy chose would undoubtedly be beneficial. A soft, rapid sound reached his ears. Wrestle, wrestle, wrestle! Mok Gyeong-un was flipping through the manual at an astonishing speed, almost as if skimming. Could he truly grasp the contents by reading like that? After going through the entire book in mere moments, he calmly placed it back on the shelf. Huh? Yang Mu-1 blinked. Had he even read it properly? Why would he skim through it like that, especially with such limited time? Even if he possessed the discernment to bypass the lower-level manuals, surely he should have taken his time with these more advanced texts. Tup! Mok Gyeong-un pulled out another manual. And then, just like before, he began flipping through the pages with incredible swiftness, the rustling sound echoing faintly in the vast space. What is he doing? Young Moo-won thought, utterly bewildered. At that speed, it wasn't skimming, it was merely turning pages. How could anyone possibly understand anything at such a pace? Unit leader Yang Moo-won was not the only one thinking this. This brat? Chong-ryong, too, watched with a growing sense of disbelief. Was he truly examining the books? He was flipping through them so quickly, it was almost like opening and immediately closing them. Mortal? Chong-ryong asked, a tentative tremor in her voice. Are you really memorizing it? If you flip through it so quickly. Rustle, 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 tap! Mok Gyeong-un closed the final page of the manual with a soft thud and whispered, Yes, of course I'm memorizing it. Memorizing it? Chong-ryong was stunned. No matter how perfect one's memory, didn't one need to at least read the text to some extent to commit it to memory? In her eyes, Mok Gyeong-un wasn't even skimming. He was simply looking at a page for a fleeting moment before moving to the next. If I'm not trying to understand it right away, I can memorize it just by looking at it. His voice was calm, almost casual. What? Chong-ryong was momentarily at a loss for words. He claimed to have memorized everything, despite barely glancing at the text. For a moment, she felt completely dumbfounded. Even as a spirit, her memory was different from a human's, yet she couldn't accomplish such a feat. An absurd memory. She had already considered his memory unbelievable, but this transcended human limits. It was truly beyond anything she had imagined. Mok Gyeong-un, oblivious to her inner turmoil, prompted her. What's the next useful secret manual? Next? You really what? He tilted his head slightly. She almost asked if he was truly human. Not only his uncanny ability to absorb the energy of death, but also his memory. Both were extraordinary, surpassing the bounds of any ordinary human. It might be strange for a spirit like her to say, but he truly didn't seem human. Chong-ryong, who had been staring intently, finally came to her senses. The next one is, huh? Why is that there? What are you looking at? Look at the third shelf from the bottom on the right, where you're currently looking. Profound Mystic Foot Technique. Mok Gyeong-un read the title aloud. The characters clearly indicated a martial art focused on footwork. It's the foot technique of the Myeong-sun school, Chong-ryong explained. It was offered by a school that joined the Heaven and Earth Society in its early days. It's a foot technique that excels in agility and variation, and with a little modification, it can be classified as an early ascending martial art. Early ascending? Mok Gyeong-un recalled her previous explanations. Ascending martial arts aimed for the peak realm, or early-stage transcendent realm. Early ascending martial arts, however, held the potential to go beyond even the early stage of the transcendent realm. Why is this here? He asked, pointing to the shelf. She had said, Such a technique should be on the third floor, Chong-ryong muttered, sounding genuinely perplexed. Who knows? This venerable one had originally classified the profound mystic foot technique as an early ascending martial art and placed it on the third floor. If it had been moved down, then... could it be him? A sudden thought struck her. There was a possibility. After all, he had denied and overturned everything about himself. Clicking her tongue, as if the notion was absurd, she continued, Anyway, it will be good for you to learn the profound mystic foot technique. This venerable one guarantees that it's hard to find a foot technique as good as this within the entire Heaven and Earth Society. Its versatility and swiftness made it ideal for attacking and seizing opportunities in combat. At her words, Mok Gyeong-un swiftly flipped through the profound mystic foot technique, memorizing it page by page. She watched, her spiritual form almost sticking out a tongue, still unable to grow accustomed to the sight no matter how many times she witnessed it. It was truly a crazy memory. An entire book, absorbed in about 15 counts. Rustle! Tap! The sound was becoming routine. Next, Mok Gyeong-un prompted. Fifth from the bottom on the right. Yes. At this pace, he could memorize dozens, perhaps even hundreds of books before their time expired. While the necessity of memorizing so many was questionable, the sheer volume of knowledge would undoubtedly expand his insight into martial arts to an unprecedented degree. Legends spoke of ancient imperial officials, like Hwang Sung, who became peerless experts simply by reading thousands of Taoist secret manuals, achieving enlightenment and opening their meridians. Each secret manual contained unique insights. If this mortal truly possessed talent, he would certainly gain something profound from this experience. Rustle, rustle, tap, next. His voice was devoid of effort, a stark contrast to the monumental task he was undertaking. It was truly hard to get used to. It was instantaneous. The one next to it? Chong Ryong hesitated. Why? Is there another martial art like the profound mystic foot technique? Mok Gyeong-un inquired. No, that's not it. But the supreme ultimate soft palm over there is a palm technique of the Wudang sect. Wudang sect? Is that also a martial arts school? His lack of basic martial world knowledge often surprised her. I'm constantly witnessing the limits of your knowledge, she sighed. He truly knew next to nothing about the martial arts world, to an almost excessive extent. The Wudang sect, Chong Ryong began to explain, can be considered the pinnacle of Taoist martial arts. Among the righteous factions, it is called the Supreme Martial Arts School, surpassing even the famous schools. It must be an incredible place. Mok Gyeong-un's interest was piqued. Indeed. It's not one of the 9 schools and 1 sect for nothing. What are the 9 schools and 1 sect? I don't have time to explain every single thing. So to put it simply, there are 9 martial arts schools and 1 sect that are regarded as the best even among the righteous factions. The Wudang sect is one of them. Is that so? Then it would be better to learn this as well. No. Actually, I was going to tell you not to learn it. Mok Gyeong-un looked puzzled. Why? If it's a martial art from such an incredible place, of course it would be useful, Chong Ryong conceded. However, for you, Taoist martial arts might actually be... Why? It's because it could be poisonous to you. Poisonous? The word hung heavy in the air. Most of the energy occupying your body is the energy of death. However, Taoist martial arts are based on the principles of nourishing life. So, if you carelessly learn it, it might clash with the death energy, which is why I was hesitating. Her concern was palpable. Ah, is that so? It made perfect sense. In that case, it might indeed be safer not to learn it. But then, Mok Gyeong-un made a decision. Still, I'll memorize it. What? Why, Chong Ryong protested aghast. No. How do you know if it might come in handy? He smiled faintly. Come in handy? Didn't you tell me before, Chong Ryong? What did I say? That just by looking at the wounds or traces left by martial arts, you can identify which school it belongs to and what type it is. I did say that. Couldn't this be used in a similar way if utilized well? Mok Gyeong-un's eyes held a shrewd glint. You couldn't possibly, Chong Ryong trailed off, a new understanding dawning. He smiled again, a subtle, knowing curve of his lips. Chong Ryong clicked her tongue inwardly. Whenever this fellow learned something, the ways he thought of utilizing it were truly beyond what others could imagine. He would be a formidable and troublesome individual to have as an enemy. As Mok Gyeong-un reached for the manual, his fingers brushed against the cover. A flicker of puzzlement crossed his face as he examined the book. A distinct part of the secret manual was dark red, as if it had been stained with dried blood. Moreover, the manual itself seemed quite old, its pages brittle with age. Didn't you say they only collected copies? Mok Gyeong-un asked, his voice low, tinged with curiosity and surprise. Chong Ryong, sensing his confusion, also found it strange. The book currently clutched in Mok Gyeong-un's hand was not what she expected. It seems to be the original. The ancient tome rested in Mok Gyeong-un's hands, its pages subtly worn, yet the characters within seemed to breathe with an unexpected vibrancy. He traced a faint discoloration near the spine, a mark that almost resembled a dried blood stain. It prompted a quiet question to the spectral voice of Chong Ryong, who accompanied him. This doesn't seem to be a mere copy, does it? He murmured, his gaze fixed on the peculiar imperfection. Chong Ryong's reply came, tinged with a note of surprise. No, not this one. A copy would surely show the ravages of time, yet these marks, they defy such easy explanation. She considered the anomaly. A newly transcribed book, rarely handled, would never bear such peculiar traces. His initial thoughts, that perhaps an original had been mistakenly shelved, or a pristine copy preserved, were quickly dismissed by her. The original would never be mixed in so carelessly, Chung Ryong stated with firm certainty. Mok Gyeong-un lifted an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. Meaning? You may not grasp it fully yet, mortal, but the original secret manual holds a profound significance. Her voice softened, carrying the weight of ancient knowledge. He thought of his grandfather's words, a distinction between a Confucius poem transcribed by a student and one penned by the sage himself. The creator's touch, he supposed, imbued a unique value. Is it merely the creator's historical value? Mok Gyeong-un inquired. Chung Ryong, however, guided him deeper. While the creator's legacy is a part of it, what truly matters are the engraved characters themselves. The strokes. She paused, a test in her silence. What did this venerable one tell you about traces when teaching you martial arts? Mok Gyeong-un's brow furrowed in thought, recalling her past lessons. Traces are the martial art itself. The words formed not from rote memory, but from a burgeoning understanding. He elaborated, feeling the concept solidify within him. Nothing holds more than the strokes. Each trace may contain the creator's habits, their very technique trajectories. A sharp intake of breath, unseen yet felt, radiated from Chung Ryong. Her surprise was palpable. She had held low expectations, prepared to clarify, to explain the profound implications. Yet Mok Gyeong-un had articulated the precise truth, a concept usually reserved for those on the cusp of the transcendent realm, a pinnacle of martial cultivation. This young man, who had only recently begun his martial journey, spoke of ascending martial arts principles with a natural ease. He possessed more than just a prodigious memory. His comprehension was startling, verging on the terrifying. She wondered what might have been had he started cultivating from a younger age. Perhaps he would have reached the transcendent realm before ever reaching manhood. His talent, she realized, was genuinely frightening. Was I wrong? Mok Gyeong-un asked, a hint of amusement in his tone, observing her prolonged silence. Well, you somewhat understood, she finally managed, trying to rein in her awe, fearing excessive praise might breed complacency. A soft chuckle escaped Mok Gyeong-un. Her delay in responding, after he had spoken so clearly, hinted at a deeper accuracy than she let on. He knew he had hit the mark. Yet boasting held no appeal for him. Martial arts were a tool, a blade to be sharpened for the singular purpose of revenge. Indeed, as you said, the original contains the creator's true intention in each stroke, Chung Ryong continued, clearing her throat. It's like condensed enlightenment. High-level experts seek them out to broaden their insight. I see. Valuable knowledge, he replied, absorbing the information. Its presence here is no mistake, then, she concluded, her voice regaining its usual firmness. She understood now why a mere copy would not be mistaken for or substituted due to wear and tear. Mok Gyeong-un nodded, already shifting his focus. Time was short. I'll continue memorizing, he announced, his gaze already sweeping across the page. Go ahead, Chung Ryong urged. A soft rustling filled the air as Mok Gyeong-un turned the pages. He had intended to merely imprint the characters, to stamp them into his mind as before. But now, with Chung Ryong's words echoing in his thoughts, his eyes unconsciously fixated on the strokes, observing their thickness, their flow. The movement of the creator's wrist seemed to materialize in his mind's eye. Then, an astonishing phenomenon unfolded. It was something even Chung Ryong, with all her ancient wisdom, had not foreseen. A gasp caught in his throat, though no sound escaped. Within his mind, an old Taoist appeared, faceless, yet his movements were exquisitely clear. The figure moved with graceful fluidity, dancing as if tracing the very techniques of the supreme ultimate soft palm. He saw each motion with uncanny precision, where force gathered and released, where energy flowed. It was a bizarre, almost surreal experience. The most primitive, fundamental techniques, straight from the creator's true intent, were imprinting themselves directly onto his consciousness. A mnemonic chant, previously abstract, now pulsed with life and motion. The rustling of pages ceased. Mok Gyeong-un had turned the final page, his expression alight with an unfamiliar elation. What was this feeling? It was as if, for a fleeting instant, he had become one with the Creator, tasting the very essence of the supreme ultimate soft palm. He was profoundly different from merely memorizing shapes and attempting to mimic them with his body. Not bad, he thought, a quiet satisfaction blossoming within. He yearned to recapture that sensation. But a wave of disappointment washed over him. Most other manuals he knew would be copies, denying him this extraordinary connection. "What should I learn next?" he asked, a subtle hint of his disappointment in his voice. Chung Ryong's voice cut through his thoughts. "Not here. Look at a sixth from the bottom on the next bookshelf." He followed her instruction, retrieving a heavy manual titled Immeasurable 15 Swords. As he opened it, he instinctively expected a copy. Yet the new habit, born from his previous experience, compelled him to meticulously imprint the characters, to seek out the creator's strokes. Huh? A middle-aged master materialized in his mind, sword in hand. The master wielded a heavy blade, each swing burdened with immense weight. With every strike, the force at the sword's tip soared, immeasurable, just as the name implied. It was a revelation for Mok Gyeong-un, who had never encountered such a technique. Chung Ryong watched him, her invisible form squirming with growing puzzlement. His page-turning speed had noticeably slowed. Where he had once devoured a manual in 25 counts, he now lingered, taking nearly 30. Still lightning fast for an ordinary person, but distinctly slower for him. "Ah," Mok Gyeong-un murmured, breaking the silence. "Why are you doing that?" she probed. "It took a bit more time, didn't it?" "Even though it's slower than before, it only took you about 25 to 30 counts. Was it only that much?" Mok Gyeong-un was inwardly astonished. He had felt time stretch, convinced he had spent a significant period immersed in the techniques, just as he had with the supreme ultimate soft palm. He had been so utterly consumed by the feeling of performing the techniques alongside their creator. "It's peculiar. To think it only flowed that much," he mused aloud. "Wait," Chung Ryong interrupted, her voice sharp with sudden realization. "Are you saying you felt as if time was passing slowly?" Yes. A disbelieving sigh escaped her. "Ah, why are you reacting like that?" he asked, genuinely bewildered. "It's a state of selflessness," she explained, pronouncing the ancient term mu, ajigyong. It was a stage where one's mind became so utterly immersed in something that self-awareness faded. Yet Mok Gyeong-un, lacking the spiritual enlightenment usually required, had stumbled into this state while simply reading mnemonic chants. It was utterly unprecedented. "Should I be happy about this?" she pondered, a mix of amusement and exasperation. Ordinary geniuses, martial or otherwise, typically followed a somewhat predictable path of learning and enlightenment. Mok Gyeong-un's journey was completely jumbled. How could one enter a state of selflessness while speed reading? Despite her curiosity about what exactly he was immersing himself in during those brief moments, time pressed on. "Don't be conscious of falling into a state of selflessness," she advised. "It means you're gaining something invaluable from it. Rather than that, let's hurry and memorize other secret manuals. We need to quickly finish the second floor and move to the third." The second floor was a mere introduction to ascending martial arts. The third floor held true treasures, even some early ascending martial arts that commanded her respect. If he could memorize those, Mok Gyeong-un's insight would undergo a transformation. A pang of regret pierced Chung Ryong. If only this were the main headquarters' true treasure vault, she knew of several hidden manuals. But these were copies, and such concealed gems would never have been replicated. In the brief moments that remained on the second floor, Mok Gyeong-un devoured 45 martial arts secret manuals. His pace, though still impossibly fast, had slowed. With each book, he found himself falling into that state of selflessness for a longer duration. Though the overall time was short, it felt lengthy to him, a journey through countless forms and techniques. "Now, let's go to the third floor," Chung Ryong urged, her voice laced with anticipation. "Yes," Mok Gyeong-un agreed, feeling a surge of renewed purpose. All the useful manuals on the second floor were now imprinted within him. They ascended. The third floor greeted them with fewer bookshelves and noticeable empty spaces where books should have been. Unlike the lower floors, this level primarily housed ascending martial arts, with rare early ascending arts interspersed among them. Their rarity naturally limited their quantity. They really replicated it almost identically. Chung Ryong inwardly marveled, a faint click of her tongue. The arrangement was strikingly familiar, despite minor differences in volume. It was uncanny how closely it mirrored the main headquarters library. If her memory served, in the true library, a particular secret manual she had hidden should be on the top right end of the third bookshelf from the right. Then, a jolt. Shh! Chung Ryong's invisible eyes widened in disbelief. Exactly in that spot, the young white sword technique's manual, the very one she had personally placed there, sat. They made a copy of that too? It seemed impossible. Aside from 2 torn pages hidden within, it was a mediocre sword technique, helpful only to second-rate practitioners. There was no conceivable reason to transcribe it as a copy, let alone place it on the 3rd floor. If anything, the useful, undamaged portions would have been relegated to the 1st. Ryong, Mok Gyeong-un's voice cut into her stupor. She was silent. Chung, Ryong. Ah, she snapped back to attention. Which secret manual would be good to look at next? Chung Ryong, still reeling from her discovery, spoke almost experimentally. Take out the one on the top right end of the 3rd bookshelf from the right. Yang white sword technique? Mok Gyeong-un queried, already reaching for it. Yes. He retrieved the manual. Its outer ink was smudged, and the front page curled slightly at the corner. Ha! Chung Ryong let out a choked sound, a fake cough that betrayed her profound shock. Mok Gyeong-un looked at her, puzzled. Why are you reacting like that? Why did I realize it only now? This venerable one is quite foolish, she mumbled, chastising herself. What are you talking about? They moved it here. Her voice was laced with a dawning awe. What do you mean by moved? Mok Gyeong-un asked, his brow furrowing. The secret manuals here are the originals. What? Are you saying these are the originals? A ripple of surprise passed through Mok Gyeong-un. He hadn't spoken of it, but his repeated entries into the state of selflessness while reading the manuals had made him question their status as mere copies. Now her words confirmed his quiet suspicion. He suppressed his reaction, calmly opening the manual. A folded piece of paper lay nestled between the pages. Ah! It was still here, Chung Ryong exclaimed, delight coloring her tone. You know about it? How could I not? This venerable one personally placed it here. To think it remained until now. Her pleasure was evident. You seem quite delighted, Mok Gyeong-un noted. She cleared her throat, though her joy was undisguised. That's understandable. Oh, what is this? Mok Gyeong-un asked, taking out the folded paper. Chung Ryong's voice deepened, imbued with a newfound significance. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this is where this venerable one's completed sword techniques of the moon began. Oh, Mok Gyeong-un breathed, his curiosity escalating. He unfolded the paper. On both sides, mnemonic chants of sword techniques were meticulously written. The front bore the name of the technique, followed by its forms. Moonless Void Sword, he read aloud, the name resonating with an ancient power. Consider it your fortune, Chung Ryong announced, her voice filled with gravitas. These are the only remaining sword techniques of the Moonless Void Sword, one of the 5 great sword techniques that once symbolized the old martial arts world. Mok Gyeong-un's eyes devoured the characters, imprinting the techniques visually. Within his mind, he saw a new figure, a pale-faced, scholar-like master holding a sword, executing the forms with chilling perfection. A shudder ran through his body, goosebumps rising on his arms. These techniques were on a different plane entirely, sending a thrilling sensation through his very bones. The ghostly visage of a scholar, pale and ethereal, shimmered into Mok Gyeong-un's mind's eye, a phantom figure wielding a sword with devastating grace. Each sweep and thrust of the blade wove a path akin to a luminous full moon, and a shiver of raw astonishment, a prickling of goosebumps, ran through Mok Gyeong-un's entire being. He had experienced moments of profound selflessness since entering the treasure vault, imprinting numerous sword techniques as Chung Ryong had instructed. Yet, this one transcended them all. The surge of exhilaration it ignited within him was beyond compare. He remained frozen, his gaze fixed on the ethereal display. Chung Ryong, observing from within her wooden effigy, felt a flicker of awe. He has just begun, she mused silently, yet he instantly enters a state of selflessness upon witnessing it. His focus was truly exceptional. The tremor in his eyes suggested this young mortal was deeply shaken by the technique's sheer power, a level far beyond anything he had encountered before. Her reaction was understandable. Even she, in her lifetime, had been captivated by its majesty. This was the Moonless Void Sword, Moon Fragrance. Defeating sword, a remnant of a forgotten era, the old martial arts world, a time steeped in unparalleled ferocity. It had belonged to a peerless swordsman, one of the 5 greatest masters of that age. Though only 2 fractured techniques remained, their profound wisdom had allowed Chong-ryong to complete her own unfinished sword techniques of the moon. She hoped that even a fraction of its true essence would ignite his insight, propelling his understanding of the sword forward by leaps and bounds, regardless of his current cultivation. It was uncertain how much of its depth he could truly grasp, but his immersion was considerably longer than before. Other techniques had faded after 30 breaths, yet he remained captivated. A spark of realization flickered within him. There was no superfluous movement, no wasted energy. Mok Gyeong-un gasped silently, admiration swelling in his chest as he absorbed the middle-aged scholar's flawless execution. Previous sword techniques often contained unnecessary flourishes or paths that caught his eye with a sense of redundancy. This one was different. Every trajectory was beautiful, yes, but it was also utterly focused on the singular purpose of eliminating an opponent. It was more than a technique. It was a work of art, grim and exquisite. The longer he stared, the deeper its allure pulled him in. For Mok Gyeong-un, this sword embodied the chilling aesthetics of both the sword and death itself. Then, a profound shift. Mok Gyeong-un's consciousness seemed to meld with the phantom scholar. He moved with the master, executing the technique in perfect synchronicity. At that very instant, a swirling, dark energy began to emanate from Mok Gyeong-un's form. It was Death Ki, a power invisible to ordinary eyes, but vividly clear to Chong-ryong's spectral vision. The dark energy surged, rapidly expanding, spreading an unseen pallor across the immediate surroundings. She almost called out, a warning on the tip of her tongue, but stopped herself. Death Ki was imperceptible to the living, and Mok Gyeong-un's current state indicated something far beyond mere selflessness. He had achieved an epiphany. What profound truth had he grasped to manifest such potent death? Ki, allowing it to take form. Her curiosity surged. The flowing death Ki undulated, rippling like dark waves. Chong-ryong struggled to suppress her inner astonishment. To an ordinary observer, it was a simple ripple, but to her, a master who had long surpassed the peak of martial arts, possessing profound depth, it appeared undeniably as sword chi. This boy, could it be? She wondered. Was he not just assimilating but actually visualizing the technique, imprinting it onto his mind through the written strokes? Chong-ryong was utterly dumbfounded. This was an impossibility for someone at Mok Gyeong-un's level. Such visualization, drawing images from mere characters or sword traces, was a feat reserved for masters in the early stages of the transcendent realm. Yet Mok Gyeong-un, who hadn't even truly broken through to the peak realm, was doing it. How many times will he surprise me in a single day, she thought, a mixture of exasperation and grudging admiration. To create an image from a sword technique and gain enlightenment from it, something she had not expected at all from this young man's stage. As Chong-ryong waited, a faint metallic clanking echoed from the far end of the 3rd floor, where the bookshelves converged into a cave-like entrance. A crimson line marked the opening, and one of the shelves within produced the sound. It was soft, almost imperceptible. Neither Chong-ryong, encased in her wooden form, nor Mok Gyeong-un, lost in his deep trance, registered it. Senior warrior Gwak-mungi exhaled a frustrated sigh, his expression laced with irritation. He was the only one, besides Valley Master Lee Ji-yom, who knew the precise location of this secluded treasury. Thus, he had no choice but to personally guide the current visitors, rather than delegating the task to his subordinates. He had been waiting for a full seiken, a quarter of an hour, a fact that filled him with simmering resentment. To endure such an inconvenience for a mere hostage from the righteous faction, a person he held no particular fondness for, was galling. "I don't understand," he muttered to himself, his mind churning. Why is this society leader so whimsical, and why is the Valley Master acting so out of character? The society leader's eccentricities were common knowledge, easily dismissed. However, Valley Master Lee Ji-young, despite his public demeanor, harbored a quiet disdain for the society leader. Yet he was extending courtesies to someone who could easily become a weapon aimed directly at him, a stark departure from his usual cautious self. What could he be thinking? Doubt gnawed at him. A soft rustling sound somewhere behind him snapped Gyeong-un from his reverie. He flinched, whipping his head around. His eyes widened in disbelief. Standing there, as if materialized from thin air, were two figures. One was slender, cloaked in a straw hat with a veil, obscuring their features. The other was a handsome young man, appearing to be in his early 20s, a formidable large sword strapped to his back. Who dares? Gyeong-un's mind screamed. This was Corpse Blood Valley, its security paramount. Who were these audacious intruders? His hand instinctively moved towards the sword hilt at his waist, but before his fingers could even grasp the cold steel, a firm hand clamped down on the back of his own. What? The young man's grip was swift, decisive, preventing him from drawing his weapon. Judging from your belt, you seem to be a warrior of Corpse Blood Valley. The young man's voice was calm, authoritative. Calm down. Gyeong-un frowned, his irritation deepening. This young man knew his identity. Not only had he exhibited extraordinary lightness skills, appearing silently and disarming him in an instant, but he also seemed to be connected to the main sect. Who are you? Gyeong-un demanded. The young man produced a plaque from his bosom, holding it up for Gyeong-un to see. The sight of it made Gyeong-un's eyes nearly bulge from their sockets. The emblem engraved upon it was unmistakably that of the Bright Blade King. Unit leader Yang Mu-won stifled a wide yawn, his gaze momentarily drifting from the burning incense stick to the young man engrossed in a manual across the treasure vault. He had initially watched Mok Gyeong-un skim through the various secret manuals rather carelessly, but now the boy was deeply focused on a single book, a clear sign he had finally found something of significance. That's good, young Mu-won thought. Perhaps he would emerge before the full cycle was up. Suddenly, a prickle of unease ran down his spine. The guardian, who had been observing Mok Gyeong-un, stiffened and quickly turned, searching the space behind him. What is it? He murmured. He sensed a presence, distinct from senior warrior Gyeong-un's usual heavy tread. This newcomer was a master of a far higher caliber, nearly on par with a unit leader. Who could it be? If not Gyeong-un, who had managed to enter this highly restricted area. The soft tread of approaching footsteps broke the silence. Into his sight came the slender figure in the veiled straw hat, followed closely by the handsome young man. Young Mu-won's voice boomed, sharp and clear. Who are you? He considered the probability. They likely hailed from the main headquarters, given their knowledge of this concealed location. Still, without proper authorization, no one was permitted to enter. The handsome young man once more reached into his bosom. He presented the plaque, then cupped his hands in a respectful salute. Are you the one in charge of the treasure vault? I am Yap Hui-sohon, a disciple of the Bright Blade King. A disciple of the Bright Blade King? Interest sparked in young Mu-won's eyes. For a disciple of one of the Heaven and Earth Society's 5 kings to appear here, what momentous reason could have brought him? To think he's only in his early 20s and at this level, young Mu-won mused, a flicker of surprise. The rumors that most of the 5 kings' disciples were masters of unit leader caliber or even higher certainly held truth. Based on his chi sensitivity alone, young Mu-won couldn't guarantee victory in a confrontation. Then his attention shifted to the silent figure beside the disciple. Their presence was almost imperceptible despite their proximity. He couldn't even gauge their level through chi sensitivity. A true master, even more powerful than himself, a cultivator at the peak realm. Young Mu-won was about to inquire about the veiled individual's identity. I am Unit Leader Young Mu-won, the guardian of the treasure vault. The person beside, you're the one in charge of the treasure vault, right? Yup, Hui-sohon interrupted, his tone direct. Then there's a secret manual I'm looking for inside. May I enter? Young Mu-won shook his head. I apologize, but according to the rules, no one can enter this place freely. Rules? Corpse Blood Valleys. No, the sect's rules. I don't know how you, a disciple of the Bright Blade King, found out about this location, but according to our regulations, this place is not accessible except in special circumstances. If there's something you're looking for, please go to the treasure vault in the main headquarters. I need the original, Yip Wee-sung stated, cutting him off. Young Mu-won's eyes narrowed. They knew. Somehow, they had uncovered the secret of this vault, that it contained the originals of the most potent secret manuals. Who had divulged such sensitive information? Regardless, young Mu-won shook his head again. Even if they knew the truth, he couldn't permit entry. I'm sorry. Even if you're a disciple of one of the 5 kings, you cannot enter this place. Please leave. Oh my. Yip Wee-sung sighed dramatically. I truly didn't want to say this, Unit Leader Yang. Do you know who this person in front of your eyes is? How could he know when their face was covered? Young Mu-won felt a surge of irritation. As he hesitated, the veiled person lifted the hem of their robe, revealing a round plaque crafted from gleaming jade. The moment he saw it, young Mu-won's breath hitched. His eyes widened in absolute shock. He dropped to one knee, cupping his hands together in a salute. Unit Leader Young Mu-won greets the... Shh, quiet. The voice that emerged from beneath the veil was unmistakably feminine. At her soft command, young Mu-won immediately ceased speaking. Why is she here? Young Mu-won inwardly clicked his tongue, striving to maintain an outwardly composed demeanor. Was this the famed woman of whom he had heard so many rumors? Her presence was truly startling. Was she at this level? His chi sensitivity could not even gauge her power, confirming the truth of the circulating whispers. Overwhelmed by the veiled woman's imposing aura, Yip Wee-sung spoke, his voice deferential. Then, may we enter? He made to step forward with the veiled woman, but young Mu-won quickly stood, blocking their path. What is the meaning of this? Yip Wee-sung demanded, a hint of impatience in his tone. I apologize, young Mu-won stammered, caught between deference and duty. But inside there is currently... I know, Yip Wee-sung finished for him. Isn't there a cadet who obtained top score plaques in the Corpse Blood Valley trials and entered to receive a martial arts secret manual? How do you know that? Young Mu-won asked, perplexed. I heard it from the senior warrior of Corpse Blood Valley at the bottom of the cliff, Yip Wee-sung replied smoothly. They had already been informed by Gwakmun-gi. Young Mu-won's expression became troubled. If you already know, could you please wait a little longer? Inside the treasure vault, at a time. We will quietly find what this person is looking for and leave, Yip Wee-sung interjected, his voice carrying a subtle edge. Surely, Unit Leader, you're not telling this person to wait just for a mere cadet to choose a secret manual? That's... Young Mu-won was in an impossible position. According to the strict rules, if someone was already inside the treasure vault, subsequent visitors had to wait. Yet he could not, would not, stop the veiled woman before him. Her authority was absolute. I understand. Please enter. However, since there are rules, I kindly request that you quietly find what you're looking for and leave. And, he stopped short of adding, and try not to disturb the cadet. He judged that individuals of their standing would not intentionally bother a cadet who had achieved such distinction. Ho, I understand. Let's go in. With that, they finally entered the treasure vault, oblivious to Unit Leader Young Mu-won's anxious demeanor. Once inside, Yip Wee-sung turned to the veiled woman, a look of genuine amazement on his face. Oh my, it's truly similar. Indeed, the veiled woman nodded in agreement. She had heard that the main headquarters treasure vault had been replicated here, but it felt as if it had been perfectly transplanted. After a brief survey, they ascended towards the upper floor of the vault, their destination, the second floor where the sought-after manual resided. That person up there appears to be the cadet who received 3 top-score plaques, Yip Wee-sung noted, gesturing towards Mok Gyeong-un on the 3rd floor. The veiled woman's gaze followed his. Watching Mok Gyeong-un, lost in concentration, she spoke. 3 top-score plaques in Corpse Blood Valley. That's impressive. Yip Wee-sung's eyebrows twitched almost imperceptibly at her words. A small smile played on his lips. He seems quite capable. However, among the disciples of the 5 kings, there is no one who couldn't achieve that level. No? Wouldn't they have obtained more than 3? He naturally implied that if he, a disciple of a king, had participated, he would have swept all the plaques. Despite understanding his thinly veiled arrogance, the veiled woman showed no particular reaction. Instead, she muttered, still watching Mok Gyeong-un, a cadet who obtained 3 top-score plaques is likely to become a disciple of one of the executives. That's, Yep Wee-sung conceded. It was likely true. Such a performance indicated the highest potential among the cadets, ensuring he would likely pass the final trial and be chosen by an executive. Still, the veiled woman's continued interest in the cadet displeased him. If his abilities are truly exceptional, that may be the case. But the executives also have their own preferences, so it's uncertain what will happen. Still, for a talent of that caliber, it would be good to make his acquaintance lightly for the future. Yep. Wee-sung felt a tightening in his chest. He had painstakingly created this opportunity for her, and she was showing interest in a mere cadet from the Corpse Blood Valley trials. He looked up at Mok Gyeong-un, who remained deeply immersed in his book. Yeop Wee-sung turned to the veiled woman. Then, young lady, please wait a moment. There's no need, she began. It's beneath your dignity to personally approach a mere cadet, Yap Wee-sung insisted, a glint in his eye. I will bring him to you. All right, she conceded. Yep Wee-sung ascended to the 3rd floor where the bookshelves stood. As he reached the top, he snorted softly. His suspicion was confirmed. The cadet had indeed fallen into a state of selflessness. If he hadn't, he would have at least glanced down, aware of their presence on the lower floor. But Mok Gyeong-un had not even stirred. What should I do? Yup. Wee-sung glanced down at the veiled woman. He was displeased that she continued to show interest in such a trivial figure. He was conflicted. Enlightenment, huh? The boy's utterly blank expression, his complete unawareness of Yap Wee-sung's proximity, undoubtedly indicated a breakthrough was in progress. Typically, in such a situation, one would either leave them undisturbed or, if a close relationship existed, erect a protective formation to prevent any interruptions. Disruption during Enlightenment could lead to devastating consequences, from becoming a living dead to falling into profound delusion. Well, it's none of my business, he decided. His only objective was to present this fellow to the young lady. She couldn't be kept waiting for this lowly cadet. Yup. Wee-sung's lips curled into a faint, self-satisfied smirk. Don't blame me. It was just your bad luck. If the young lady hadn't shown interest, he wouldn't have deliberately interfered. He extended his hand towards Mok Gyeong-un, intending a light touch. Just a light touch, and that enlightenment. At that precise moment, Mok Gyeong-un, whose gaze had been fixed on the secret manual, slowly turned his head to the side, his upper body remaining utterly still. His eyes met Yeop Wee-sung's. What are you doing? Mok Gyeong-un asked, his voice calm, yet edged with an unsettling clarity. Huh? For a fleeting instant, Yeop Wee-sung was stunned. Had the boy's consciousness truly returned at this exact moment? This was exceptionally awkward. His hand hovered mere inches from Mok Gyeong-un's head. What possible excuse could he offer? This is, he stammered, searching for words. Intentionally touching someone during a state of selflessness or visualization is said to be an act of deliberately inducing mental demons, isn't it? Mok Gyeong-un continued, his gaze unwavering. Yap Wee-sung was momentarily speechless. How could this cadet, having just emerged from such a deep trance, grasp the situation so perfectly and swiftly? He felt like a thief caught red-handed, his mind scrambling for a plausible denial. You did it knowingly, didn't you? Mok Gyeong-un pressed, his voice devoid of emotion. Hey, cadet, you're misunderstanding something. Yep, Wee-sung began, desperation creeping into his tone. No need for discussion. What? A sharp, swift strike. Yeop Wee-sung had no time to block, no chance to react. Mok Gyeong-un's hand, a hardened blade between thumb and index finger, struck his larynx with devastating force. Yep. Wee-sung's head snapped back with a choked cry of pain. The library's air hung thick with an ancient stillness, disturbed only by the soft hum of concentration emanating from Mok Gyeong-un. He sat, utterly lost to the world, a mere silhouette against the muted light filtering through the tall windows. His mind had transcended the physical, venturing into realms where concepts twisted into raw energy. This profound state, a true oblivion, was enlightenment in its purest form. Chung Ryong, bound to him as a servant spirit, felt the delicate balance of his cultivation, a fragile masterpiece on the brink of completion. Her existence pulsed with his, and a tremor of unease ran through her ethereal form. A shadow fell across the tranquil space. A tall, handsome young man moved with deliberate steps towards Mok Gyeong-un. His eyes, even from a distance, held a predatory glint, a clear intent to disrupt the profound meditation. Chung Ryong's spirit flared with protective urgency. To disturb someone in such a state was not merely rude, it was an act of profound malice. The energy currents flowing through Mok Gyeong-un, if violently interrupted, could reverse, leading to the dreaded key deviation, a catastrophic unraveling of one's very foundation. She hesitated, her phantom limbs aching to burst free from her wooden puppet shell and intervene directly. Their fates were irrevocably entwined. The young man's hand began to reach out, a slow, calculated arc aimed at Mok Gyeong-un's forehead. A surge of fury, cold and sharp, ripped through Chung Ryong. Damn that mortal, she thought, her silent condemnation echoing in the quiet chamber. To do this at such a crucial moment. Yet, as the hand neared, something extraordinary happened. A swirling vortex of death energy, the very essence of killing intent that had subtly emanated from Mok Gyeong-un's body during his deep focus, was suddenly sucked back into him. It was as if a hidden force had pulled it inward, vanishing without a trace. In that instant, Mok Gyeong-un's blank, unfocused eyes snapped open. They no longer held the vacant stare of deep meditation. A radiant light shone within them, imbuing them with a startling depth, a newly forged understanding of the world. Chung Ryong felt a wave of relief so profound it nearly buckled her. Her worry about a heart demon, a corrupted inner self, vanished. He had not fallen, he had achieved. He had completed his enlightenment. "Look to your right," she cried, her voice echoing only in the silent space within his mind. Mok Gyeong-un instinctively turned his head. A hand hovered inches from his forehead, fingers poised to strike. The young man, later revealed to be Yup Wi-soyeon, a disciple of the esteemed Bright-Blade King, froze, his face a mask of bewilderment. "What are you doing?" Mok Gyeong-un's voice, though calm, held an edge that cut through the silence. "Yup," Wi-son stammered, unable to form a coherent reply. His ill intent had been laid bare. Chung Ryong's voice resonated in Mok Gyeong-un's mind, explaining the gravity of the situation. "That mortal was trying to disturb you. When you're in a state of meditation or oblivion, if disturbed, you may fall into a heart demon. If that happens, the heart demon will arise, and the energy will flow in reverse, causing adverse effects. That is precisely chi deviation." Mok Gyeong-un's gaze, now sharp and cold, fixed upon Yup Wi-son. This was their first encounter, yet the malice radiating from the other man was undeniable. He processed Chung Ryong's words, the severe consequences of such an act sinking in. "I've heard that touching someone during a state of oblivion or meditation is an intentional act of causing a heart demon," Mok Gyeong-un stated, his voice flat. "Is that correct?" Yup Wi-son remained silent, his gaze faltering. His lack of a denial spoke volumes. "You did it on purpose, didn't you?" Mok Gyeong-un pressed, his conviction hardening. That's... Yup Wi-son began, his voice a desperate stammer. "No need for explanations," Mok Gyeong-un cut him off, his hand flashing. Before Yup Wi-son could react, Mok Gyeong-un's thumb and index finger struck his Adam's apple with precise, blinding speed. A sharp gasp escaped Yup Wi-son's lips as his head snapped back. He had been caught off guard, reeling from the shock of being discovered. The speed of that strike, however, was something else entirely. This bastard? Yup. Wi-seon's mind raced. He had perceived Mok Gyeong-un as a mere first-rate expert, a trifle. How could his hands move with such impossible swiftness? A searing pain flared in his throat, his breath momentarily blocked. Circulating energy became a torturous ordeal. He needed to recover, to create distance. With a desperate cough, Yup Wi-son performed a somersault in the air, utilizing intricate footwork to rapidly retreat. He landed several paces away, gasping for air, clutching his bruised throat. But Mok Gyeong-un showed no mercy. He launched forward, a blur of motion. Kicks exploded through the air, a relentless barrage of strikes. Chung Ryong watched, astonished, as Mok Gyeong-un unleashed the fourth stance of the shadowless flash kick, a technique of incredible speed and precision. "Damn it!" Yip Wee-sung cursed inwardly. He hadn't even drawn his sword. The incoming kicks forced him to engage in bare-fisted combat, a situation he hadn't anticipated. Though his master, Bright Blade King Sun-yun, was renowned for his sword techniques, he would never have left his disciples unprepared for hand-to-hand combat. Yip Wee-sung parried the blows, but with each block his feet were pushed back further. He couldn't hide his growing bewilderment. He was a master at the peak of the transcendent realm, albeit with his energy circulation hindered, yet he was being driven back by mere kicks. Who the hell is this guy? A cold dread began to settle in his stomach. The humiliation burned. The thought of the young ladies downstairs witnessing this debacle ignited a fresh surge of anger. His carefully laid plan had been ruined, and now he was being openly shamed. With a guttural gasp, Yip Wee-sung deployed a defensive fist technique, simultaneously switching to a simplified stance with his left hand. The onslaught of kicks was too much for a single fist. He absorbed a punishing blow to his chest and another to his left shoulder, but the sacrifice allowed him to reach behind him. A resonant thud echoed as he drew the massive sword strapped to his back. The blade, gleaming dully in the library's light, shimmered as it cleared its sheath. Without hesitation, Yip Wee-sung unleashed a powerful sword technique, the bright single-blade technique, third stance, single-strike sword rotation. A domineering burst of sword energy, infused with brutal sharpness, tore through the air towards Mok Gyeong-un. Mok Gyeong-un twisted his body, an impossibly agile move that bought him a brief moment of aerial respite. A moment later, a deafening crash reverberated through the library. 5 sections of the ancient bookshelf behind him were cleanly bisected, their splintered remains raining down. The sharp energy's range was far wider than it appeared. Yip Wee-sung's face, however, turned ashen. His eyes, fixed on the secret manuals that had been cut in half along with the shelves, widened in horror. Gasp. In his furious haste to cut down his opponent, he had destroyed nearly 30 invaluable texts. Fortunately, the third floor wasn't fully packed with manuals, limiting the damage. Still, slicing through original secret manuals with raw energy was a monumental error. Damn it! Even as a disciple of one of the 5 kings, he faced severe punishment for this act of wanton destruction. The thought of the impending consequences only fueled his rage. This upstart had ruined everything. This won't do? Yup. Wee-sung plunged his massive sword into the ground, its tip embedding itself with a solid thunk. He concentrated his energy into one hand, shaping it into a shimmering blade of pure force. His giant sword was too unwieldy for close quarters, its destructive potential too high. Even with the increased energy consumption, using a bare-hand sharp energy attack was the safer, more controlled option. "I'll kill you in one strike," he vowed. With the damage done, there was no turning back. If Mok Gyeong-un was dead, there would be no witness to his disturbed meditation. It's not meant to be used in a place like this, but... Yep. Wee-sung assumed an extraordinary stance, his body tensing, every muscle coiled. The bright, single-blade technique comprised 11 stances and 5 hidden ultimate techniques. His master had reserved these ultimate techniques for killing. Each was a sure kill move, their efficacy reliant on their secrecy. The less they were known, the more deadly they remained. Yip Wee-sung launched his body forward. Bright single-blade technique, second ultimate technique, fatal retribution. The trajectory of his sharp energy attack instantly split into 5 distinct branches, converging like a whirlwind, each stroke concentrating on a single point as they charged relentlessly towards Mok Gyeong-un. This was his favorite ultimate technique, designed to completely obliterate an opponent's chest, ensuring certain death. "Die," he roared internally. At that very moment, a shimmering distortion appeared around Mok Gyeong-un's fingertips as he clenched his hand into sword fingers. The air itself seemed to ripple, a phenomenon caused by the manifestation of sharp energy. "You!" Chung Ryong's silent cry of surprise reverberated in Mok Gyeong-un's mind. This was it. He had achieved the complete peak realm. He could now wield sharp energy. Yip Wee-sung saw it too. The undeniable emanation of sharp energy from Mok Gyeong-un's sword fingers confirmed that his opponent was at least at the mature peak realm, or even higher. He's hiding his true skill. This only solidified Yap Wison's resolve. He had to kill him, no matter the cost. In that fleeting moment, Mok Gyeong-un's concentration soared to an unprecedented peak. I can see it, he thought. It was a strange, almost ethereal vision. Perhaps it was the residual effect of his profound enlightenment, the communion with the universe during his oblivion. He could perceive the complete trajectory of the fatal retribution stance, the intricate flow of its energy, even the precise moment it would reach its apex. Within that vision, a faint opening revealed itself, a single, minuscule flaw in the otherwise perfect attack. Without hesitation, Mok Gyeong-un moved towards the opening he had spotted. His speed was incredible, a fleeting blur. Yap Wison curled his lips into a bitter sneer. Foolish fellow. The fatal retribution stance could only be broken by maintaining distance and striking when the sword strokes converged and then dispersed. Approaching it closely would only empower the technique, rendering it a suicidal act. Mok Gyeong-un's sword fingers pierced the very center of Yap Wison's powerful stance. The 5 branches of sharp sword energy coiled around Mok Gyeong-un's sword fingers, wrist, shoulder, waist, and chest, threatening to tear his entire body into 5 ragged pieces. Then, with a series of sharp, explosive cracks, the 5 branches of sharp sword energy were deflected. They bounced away from Mok Gyeong-un's body, as if striking an impenetrable barrier. "What?" "Yup," Wison gasped. The opening, previously faint, became glaringly obvious. Mok Gyeong-un's sword fingers, imbued with sharp energy, shot towards that exposed vulnerability like a bolt of lightning, aiming directly for Yap Wison's left eye. This can't be," Yap Wison cried internally. It was too fast, too precise. There was no time to avoid it. Just as Mok Gyeong-un's sword fingers were about to make contact, a slender hand shot out, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. At the same instant, Yap Wison's wrist, still unleashing the last vestiges of his technique, was also seized. It was a woman, her figure obscured by a wide bamboo hat, her presence sudden and commanding. "Young lady?" "Yop," Wisson managed to choke out, his voice a disbelieving whisper. With a sharp twist, the woman forced Yap Wison's wrist, bringing him crashing to his knees. A grunt of pain escaped him. Startled, he tried to raise his head, to voice his confusion, but his words caught in his throat. Through the veil of her bamboo hat, the woman's eyes were visible, radiating a coldness that was beyond description, a silent command to shut his mouth. The woman who had so effortlessly subdued Yap Wison turned her head, her gaze shifting to Mok Gyeong-un. A flicker of interest, sharp and discerning, gleamed in her eyes. Yap Wison, the second disciple of one of the 5 kings, had been forced to kneel, unable to withstand her martial power. But Mok Gyeong-un was different. She had intended to simply push him away, to break his attack, yet he hadn't budged an inch. He's resisting the power of a 3-star warrior. It was truly surprising. From a superficial glance, he seemed at most a first-rate expert. But seeing him manifest sharp energy, she knew he was a master, having reached the peak realm. She had thought the power of a 3-star warrior would be enough to deter him, but he held his ground. A subtle tremor ran through Mok Gyeong-un's arm as he felt the incredible internal energy flowing from her grip. As expected of a cadet who received 3 plaques, she stated, her voice a low, melodious hum. "With this level of skill, you'd be stronger than most other sect's masters." Mok Gyeong-un's eyes narrowed. Despite not outwardly using the energy of her danjon, the woman's internal energy was vast, profound. The face vaguely visible through the veil was young, almost youthful. Yet the energy radiating from her was reminiscent of Lee Ji-yom, the formidable valley master of the corpse Blood Valley. "You're the one with delicate wrists but extraordinary martial power," Mok Gyeong-un said, his voice measured. "Can I ask who you are?" "Crazy." "How dare you address her as you?" "Yep, Sound blurted out, still on his knees. The woman squeezed his wrist harder, eliciting a pained gasp. "Quiet," she warned, her voice firm. Then a faint smile touched her lips beneath the veil as she looked back at Mok Gyeong-un. "Wi So-yeon." The name meant little to him. He simply regarded her, waiting. She continued, her gaze unwavering. "I am Wi So-yeon, the third disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society's society leader.